Oh, excuse me. Oh, good morning, or afternoon, or evening. Whatever, whenever you're watching this, good. Or have a good. I'm kind of sort of being doubly naughty today. And because, no, the Diceology, I didn't necessarily. Well, it is what it is. One of my fave readers, Queen Cup Tarot, is using the Weaver Tarot for her Septembers. And I've been using the Journeyman Edition as limitation. And I did the same thing for this deck when I did it for that deck. When I was like, there's a spread in the book. Hey, look, there's the Seven of Cups at the bottom of the deck with the Two of Swords. Now, I can't get them to show up that often because, And it was, oops, what was that? It was storming outside, so the natural lighting isn't great. But it was amazing to wake up to. Oh, this is the Four of Coins. Now, I'm choosing this deck because of the Four of Swords. And I'm using the Diceology because I was going to use the Magical Dimensions Oracle cards and activators because I wanted a more magical deck. But then I was like, wait, I have those. I have the Diceology, and they can be sort of magical-ish. They can be whatever they are. And so I decided to pull these out. Now, this deck, it is for kind of sort of illuminating hidden things, and it is for those deeper spiritual type things. But it's more of a personal deck for me. So that's why I'm being a little bit bad because it is supposed to be like used for personal stuff, but I think we can make an exception this time. I had a really, really, really interesting dream last night. I feel like I talk about my dreams a lot, but a lot of them are so interesting. Three of Diamonds, Six of Hearts. A school of glimmering fish spotlight a sunken treasure, the rising of a new continent. This is interesting because this was one of my New Year cards for post August, right? From September to the end. And then maximizing or minimizing, limitation or support, look to the root. We have look to the root and then we have sunken treasure. But we also have the rising of a new continent if we're on that maximizing and support side of this energy instead of the minimizing and limitation. Now, this would be the Three of Zones and the Six of Essences. I know I usually read them to the traditional system, but I had a feeling to use how I do it, right? Because, that's sort of why I created it. So, the Three of Zones is about unstable spaces, nearly stable spaces. No, this is the Three of. Hold up, wait. Realms, sorry. It's realms because it's earth. Zones are air. So the Three of Realms is about nearly stable spaces. And these spaces could be unstable because of any number of reasons. Typically not because of earth. Right? If these spaces are unstable, it's typically something to do with the mind. Or it's something to do with the way that we perceive things. Right? There's some internal limitation that creates blockage on the external. And these blockages maybe that's more of a past energy, but the blockages may be hard to see because it's nearly perfect, right? It's like on the list of suspects, we've already ruled them out as the culprit. We already think that it's safe. We think it's not a problem when it actually is. That's the Three of Zones. And that's why we can't come into a four sort of like harmony and stability. The Six of Essences is halfway through the journey of essences, right? And so the Six of Essences is, excuse me, I did not sleep well last night. I have not been sleeping well for the past few days. I'm doing that thing where I sleep for 3 hours at a time and then I'm just up. And the only time I've really experienced this so far, first it was right after the lunar eclipse in January. Then it was like the month leading up to the first lunar eclipse in June, or was it May? Was it May, June, June? I think it was May, June, June. So for the first lunar eclipse in May, and then a few days before the second lunar eclipse in June, right? It was like I was sleeping well between the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse. And then, like, for that week after the solar eclipse, I was still sleeping good. But then a few days before the second lunar eclipse, I started sleeping weird again. And I'm sleeping like that again. And I guess when I sleep like that, it's about these huge shifts in energy, maybe, or something. I don't know, y'all. Um, is that the ruler of swords? Oh no, it's the Sovereign of Swords. I was like, that was the limitation in the other deck. It's the Sovereign of Swords now. But yeah, Queen Cup is using she's using the Weaver Tarot. I was like, oh snap. I love this deck. I love getting into the symbols too. And so last night I had a few dreams. And again, my dreams are like super disjointed, but seemingly continuous at the same time because I've been waking up so much. One of the first dreams that I remember, I was hanging out with somebody, right? And it was getting to the point where I was about to leave. But before I left, someone else showed up. Someone who was like, because at first we were just in a room hanging out, right? And I'm about to leave. I'm like finding my shoes or whatever. And it wasn't that kind of dream, but I'm not wearing my shoes if I'm just inside. So I'm finding my shoes. And then someone else shows up looking very princely, very affluent, very put together. And the person was introduced as the next suitor. And I was like, oh. And here's the Queen of Cups at the cut. No, that's the King of Cups. With the Page of Cups. Oh, snap. Oh, see? And I'm already questionable. King of Cups, Page of Cups. Seeker of Cups, Ruler of Cups. And I was like, and I already said about how I don't compete for attention or affection or love or anything like that. So I was like, oh, okay, so that's what this is. All right, I'm good. Bye. And then when I'm walking out, I'm just like noticing how nice the house is. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was like a mansion. And I'm like, what? But also in real life, I'm being hit with this thing that I was hit with when I went to London for the first time, where it's like, what I'm looking at is like really nice and it's a step above what my experience has been. But at the same time, I'm asking myself, like, would this be something that I even want? Like, is this something that I myself desire? Like, I know that societally I'm supposed to want this because of what it symbolizes, right? Because of the money behind it, honestly. But I'm like, in my own personal self, like, is this even something that I would necessarily want or need or engage with? And if I'm being completely honest, the answer is no. But if I'm being even more honest, the answer is I don't know. Right? It's not something that was ever really on my radar as something that I desire. And typically it's not on my radar as something that I enjoy or that I really want, like I said. But it's also the space of not knowing what I want fully without having at least experienced it, right? It's like, how can you be so sure that you don't want it if you never even experienced it? But I am going through this space again of kind of sort of being clear or mentally clearing up what it is that I actually desire, which is kind of sort of building a checkpoint, we'll say, because it's not the end, but it's building a checkpoint as I move forward, right? Because life is continuously progressive for a minute, at the very least. And where I start isn't going to be where I finish. But so that was interesting because I'm looking at how gaudy everything is, and I'm like, I don't even know if I too much want this anyway. But the weird thing is, like, I didn't feel out of place until the second suitor showed up. Then I was like, oh, okay, now I see what this is really about. And I'm just like, you know what? If they want you, they can have you. I don't compete. If you want them, you can have them. If it's a question, I will answer it for you. Um, and then in the second dream, or I feel like it was somewhat linked to the first one, but not. I was in an airplane or like one of those small flying crafts, flying with somebody, and we were in the desert because of the landscape, and it was kind of dunesy, but we were also in a section of the desert that was just like it was not super sparse, right? So there were like little cactuses and little green things sprinkled throughout, and we were flying somewhere, or we were going somewhere. Oh wow, okay. Also, last time I talked about some dreams I had, I realized that there was this whole stream of dreams that I had over a period of time, so I didn't even realize that they were connected until I started talking about them. And that was interesting. But anyway, I saw another YouTuber, a different one. I don't know why I keep seeing, they just keep making cameos in my dreams. I'm like, what is happening? Um, and she asked me if I had seen the new moon. And I was like, the new moon, like, no, like we just had a full moon. And like if it's a new moon, like you don't really see it. But she was like, no, it's like not like the new moon, like a literal new moon, like a second moon. And now that I mentioned a second moon, it's interesting because like earlier in the year, I had a dream that I went outside and I could see the stars and the moon. But then there was a second moon in the sky. And I was like, what? I was like, what is that? Is that another moon? And it looked like it because it was that big. And I'm like, I was like, what's happening? But now the new moon was brought up again last night in a dream. And um, so I was like, no, I didn't see it. Like, what are you talking about? And she pulled it up and she didn't say Death Star. I don't watch Star Wars. She didn't say Death Star, but the vibe that I was getting from her was like, oh, it's like a Death Star or whatever. And but the thing about the new moon is that it was always new. So the new moon, it was in the sky. It was in our orbit in the dream, but you couldn't see it. Hey Annette, it's been a minute. Um it was in the sky, but it was always like dark, so we couldn't see it. And then I ended up going to the place that I was going to. I was like working for somebody or something. This is where some lines might cross because, again, I woke up so many times throughout the space and course of these streams that I can't even keep it together. But I go to this one place and something was happening. And there were a few people in the room. I am extremely well. Thank you for asking. I hope you're doing well as well. Um, this month is going to be so crazy with all of the stuff that I got to do. Or not that I have to do, but it's like it's time to hit play. I can do it though. Um, but anyway, so we get to this place and there's like this explosion or something of light. And what happens is time goes backwards. I'm glad to hear it, and no problem. So it explodes and time goes backwards, right? And so it's interesting because like I looped back in time, but at least in the dream, I wasn't in a space, or maybe I was. It's like it wasn't completely the same. And it turns out that this thing had been happening a lot. But for some reason this time, maybe it was the new moon. For some reason this time I was aware that it was happening. And I was trying to get somewhere and I was met with opposition, and something about, maybe it was like going through these time loops so many times, or maybe it was finally remembering or understanding that everything was looping. It gave me abilities over time. And I was able to tap into that space of manipulated time, because maybe time was so manipulated that it made it really, really malleable or something like that. I don't know. It was a dream, right? And so I'm trying to like stop this thing from doing it again. I'm trying to break the cycle. But what's interesting is I end up finding out that there was something on the earth that went rogue. It disappeared for hundreds of years. It left the space. And I think it was that thing that was looping the time on earth, but it wanted to be outside of it. I don't know. Like I said, it was a dream. It was weird. It was just like something went rogue, something went missing, something left hundreds of years ago, and we thought it was because of this reason. We thought it was a malfunction. We thought it was whatever. But since I had already approached the end of the loop the first time, I'm like, wait, the thing that left is the thing that we ended up in, the thing that we were flying to. And yeah, we were actually going into space, because she said that when she was talking about the new moon. And I was like, what? New moon? What are you talking about? And it's like, it's a moon that's up there, but again, we can't see it because for some reason it doesn't reflect sunlight. And because it doesn't reflect sunlight, we can't see it. It's in space. And I was like, I was in space for like a few seconds, because like, and when we were in this plane, like we were moving so fast. Like the technology was like amazing. And that was just on the ground. And when she was talking about it, I was like, I was just in space for like a few seconds. Like I flew up and then I came right back, and I don't remember seeing no new moon when I was up there. But after time looped back, then something started making sense, and then I heard about the thing that went missing hundreds of years ago. I knew that I had already flown somewhere to something, and again, it was like I feel like I was working or something. It was weird. And I was like, wait, that's the thing that went missing, and that's the thing that's like looping time down here. And I'm like, how do I stop it? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't. I woke up before I even got there. And I don't know what that dream means. I could dig into it. But I decided to just come on and put some cards. Also, like, her Taurus reading is lit. Especially the first part. By the end of it, I'm like, I don't know. I think it stopped resonating for me. I'm gonna take the beginning bits. It was just so validating, and everything that I've been preparing myself for, everything that I've been saying, how I've been telling folks, if y'all are waiting until you see it in the external, you're waiting too late. If you need it to be validated in the external, you're waiting too late. As soon as you know what it is that you're supposed to do, just go ahead and do it. Like, I can't even imagine, and I've said it before, but I honestly can't imagine what it would be like experiencing everything that has been happening in the world if I hadn't already done what I had did. If I didn't know, if I wasn't so dedicated to my own journey, if I wasn't doing my own healing, and if I wasn't taking it step by step as it comes. Like if I were procrastinating it and letting it build up, I can't even imagine what my experience would be like, especially as someone who suffered from depression like nearly constantly. So shout out to the darkest night for getting me right, because if it didn't, girl, things could have been real. Not could have been. Things would have been really ugly. And something within me, when I had that darkest night, knew that if I ever hit that spot again, I wasn't going to make it through it. And that's when I was like, everything has to change. Everything. Because if I ever make it to the spot again, I'm not going to make it through it. And girl, it's starting to wear on some folks. It was already wearing on some folks. I'm just like, oof. Part of me is compassionate. I mean, all of me is compassionate. But again, part of me can't even really relate. And I'm just like, there's so much happening right now. I don't even know if I would start. I mean, I kind of encourage people to, but at the same time, sometimes I'm like, you know what? It may just be better to survive right now and to keep yourself sane and in the game. Because I don't know. I don't really, it's something that I don't resonate to. And in my mind, it's like, it requires so much vulnerability to actually work through a lot of the things that we avoid that I don't even know if I would be like, yeah, go ahead and risk that extreme vulnerability when everything is so volatile. I mean, honestly, I'm just like, oof, right? But then another part of me is like, well, I've been saying everything that I've been saying since December, January, February, March. And anything preventative that I could have offered, I already did. I'm not the best at triaging. I feel like my skills lie more in foreseeing and preventing, right? And not even necessarily foreseeing the situation, but just like, it feels like it's very important to do this now, right? But yeah, this is interesting. Wait, did I ever finish talking about the Six of Essences? I don't think I did. So the Three of Realms, sorry, the Three of Realms is that energy of it's nearly stable, but there's something outside of Earth that is preventing you from moving forward. That's water, air, or fire. It's something within you, and you not being connected to the authenticity of you. It's something about your mental, or it's something about your emotional, or a combination of those. And then the Six of Essences is after that moment of dissolution. When we're, so the journey of essences is, okay, Annette, I should be cooking something. I had my little mini communion before I came live. I ate 2 saltines and took a few sips of water. Not intentionally, but I had some water and I took a sip and I had some saltines and I ate 2 of them. So hey. But the Six of Essences, and then it's also paired with 40. And I think 40 is the teacher of essences, if I'm not mistaken. Well, let's see. Nope. 40 is the Five of Realms. So we have the Three of Realms here and the Five of Realms here in the 40. The Five of Realms is right. Um, so these are on opposite sides of the four. So four is a stability. This is a back and forth energy, right? I feel like we go from this energy of feeling really good, or we go from this energy of feeling enough to feeling not enough. Like we've done enough, we've learned enough, we feel like things are changing, something is about to happen, the wheel of fortune is about to move, and then it doesn't happen in the time that we want it. We get discouraged. We give up. We go back to the Three of Pentacles, where it's like we're getting blocked. Like we feel freed, and then we feel restricted, and then we feel freed, and then we feel restricted, and we feel free, and then we feel restricted. And neither the three or the five is very stable, right? It's like three is catalytic, five is change. It's a catch-up energy. That's what it is. Especially if we're trying to reach a certain point now, and if we didn't put in enough work, I don't want to say enough, but it kind of sort of is enough. If you didn't do enough before to have to be more grounded and to have a little bit more mental emotional stability right now, then this is catch up. And that's why it's just like back and forth between feeling ahead of it or on top of it and then behind, on top and then behind, on top and then behind. It's like someone is being dunked continuously in the water, and that is the six of essences. This is a reassembly of the self, but it's being played out in a physical way, in a physical manner, right? And this honestly feels like depression, anxiety type of energy, because depression and anxiety and some other things, that's when our emotions can physically affect us. And when a racing mind can physically affect you, it's stress to the point where it's like physically draining you, physically doing all kinds of stuff. Or maybe that's in the past. Yeah, typically I feel like the six of essences would be a little bit beyond that, but it feels like a stain that you can't get out. So you keep scrubbing and you keep rinsing and then you keep scrubbing and you keep rinsing and you keep scrubbing and you keep rinsing, and eventually some people cry and give up. Some people keep repeating the same things. Some people go to the internet and they look up, hey, how do I remove this specific stain? And then you find a specific answer that removes the stain just like that. And then there's that moment of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I wasted so much effort scrubbing and rinsing and scrubbing and rinsing and scrubbing and rinsing, and all I had to do was use a little bit of red wine. It's like, yeah. Now, okay. See, I should have said vinegar because wine is not the solution. It is a solution. I mean, hey, maybe wine is the solution for you. You know what? I ain't gonna make any grand statements. But I just wanted to pull a little bit around what that dream was kind of sort of about. And maybe it's the thing of like, once you become aware of the patterns. And that's another thing about, y'all know, like my brain, my Mercury is in Pisces. So my brain operates on metaphor, simile, and similarity. And seeing ties and connections between different things. And that's how I learn. You can kind of sort of, I found that I can reduce the learning curve if I apply what I've already learned from certain things when it's applicable. And then adjust it as necessary. And then it's like, oh yeah, okay, got it. Right? I feel like I talk about astrology a lot, but honestly, whenever I bring up my own personal astrology, that's me like, I am like this, and also I have this astrological placement. So it could be because of that astrological placement. It's not, I'm so well versed in astrology that I know that this means this, and that is also me. So if you asking me what to look into astrology to know yourself, I don't know. I just took a kind of sort of broad approach by picking up a little bit of everything and then knowing how I am, kind of sort of being able to piece it together for what it means for me, right? And that's like the first, not one of the first. Well, one of the first. Well, I feel like it was the first like educational astrologer that I got into, Shonda Rhimes astrology coach. Um, that's one of the things that she really talks about. She's like, you don't, okay, she does also, talk about knowing astrology and following the transits and knowing what it does. But she's also like, if you know who you are and how you are, then there's some of the astrology that you already know. But anyway, I learn in similarity, metaphor, and simile, right? And so I can find connections and parallels between a lot of things. And so I'm thinking about the schoolwork that I have to do. And I've been mulling over it in the back of my mind. And I feel like the way that I approach schoolwork is kind of sort of the way that I've approached the journey. And the work that I'm doing is very science heavy and it's math heavy. And it's on the computer, so it involves a fair amount of coding, not like coding, right? I ain't writing no apps or programs, but it's like a mathematical coding, right? The mathematical side of coding. The computational. It's computational coding instead of like programming. Yeah. It's computational and less programming. But it's like, you start with the things. First, you start with the problem, which is what you want. You start with the things that you know. You start with the equations that you have, and then you balance it all out until you have what you don't know on one side and everything that you do know on the other side. Now, it's easier when you only have one thing that you don't know and everything else you know, because then you just plug in this side and boom, you get the answer, right? But also, if there are multiple things that you don't know, but you have multiple equations, then you can solve the system of equations using what you do know to get multiple answers. And I feel like it's kind of sort of been that way, right? It's like I don't know the things that I don't know, but I do know what I do know. I know where I've come from. I know the lessons that I've learned and what I've grown through. I have my intuition telling me to do this in this moment, and I don't need to know where it ultimately leads me. All I need to know is that this is important for me to do because it's going to solve one of those unknowns, right? And the more unknowns you find, the easier the overall equation gets until the point where you reduce it to one unknown or zero unknowns, right? Thank you. Oh, wow. Ooh, there's that tower. There's that tower. It's funny because the tower came out in the Pisces reading. I was like, ooh. Ooh. My dreams have low key been lit. My dreams are always lit, but lately I'm just like, mm, it ain't always stuff that I want to know, but hey. So the Seeker of Cups is at the bottom of the deck. Seeker of Cups, at this point, it's almost a seeker of spirituality because it's a seeker of a state of mind. What are we reading now? I don't know. And this is kind of sort of related to the dream, or just whatever comes out. Whatever I flow to is what we'll be reading. We'll see. I'm trying to be okay. I'm lying. I'm not lying. Half of me is lying. I'm half lying, half telling the truth. And I was watching Queen Cup's Taurus reading, and she got to the part where like some of y'all's are just like not about it right now, and y'all want to make sure that y'all ain't doing whatever for whatever. And I'm like, yeah, because it's like I don't want to be uncaring, unkind, or uncompassionate, and I'm not. But at the same time, it's one of those times and one of those moments where it's like we all need to find what we need for us because right now we're all building our own foundations. And my path and my journey has taken me into more practicality and less spiritual, woo woo, energetic, do this, think this, and then magic will happen, and more actions, facing problems, and going through it and actually building the foundation, right? Because I was talking to one of my best friends and she was like, "Hey, what's going on astrologically?" I I talked to my mom about astrology now. That's so interesting. And like knowing what I know, because I know someone who has Capricorn placements that are like Jupiter, Saturn in Capricorn in the 20s of degrees, right? With the Mars that's retrograde. And I was like, oof, this explains so much. Because to me, Jupiter and Capricorn Jupiter and Saturn conjunct in Capricorn with a retrograde Mars in a fire sign is like not not having lots of opportunities in anything that you do, or it's like you work so hard with that Mars in a fire sign, but with it retrograde, it's like it you don't get a payout equal to what you put in. And then with Saturn conjuncting Jupiter and Capricorn, it's like opportunities are restricted, typically, right? And so, anyway, that's a side note. I was talking to my friend about some of the astrology because she asked me, because she's like, every time you tell me about the astrology, it's so like on point for me in my life. And I was like, I know it, like it works like that. And then we were talking about houses, and I was like, typically I don't look at houses. I know I should, but I just don't. I'll mention it here and there, but in my own personal life, I just look at transits. I'd be like, oh, this is hitting this, that's hitting that. And honestly, I haven't even, well, because I know my own birth chart by this point, so I don't have to like look at the transits, right? If something is like 25 degrees Scorpio and my Pluto is 25 degrees Scorpio, I know it's conjuncting. If something is 25 degrees Pisces or Cancer, I know it's trining. If it's 25 degrees Leo or Aquarius, it's squaring. If it's 25 degrees Taurus, it's opposing. 25 degrees Capricorn or Virgo, it's a sextile, right? Excuse me. So I don't necessarily have to look into it. No problem, Annette. I hope you enjoy your meal. Um, and so we were talking about Saturn and just knowing what she's going. I feel like the whole collective is basically going through a Saturn return right now. Honestly, that's what it feels like. And America is going through a Pluto return right now. So, you know, and that whole thing started because I was on Twitter one day and somebody was like, the average lifespan of an empire is 250 years. Astrologers, what does that mean? And someone was like, well, 250 years would put you at about a Pluto return. And then I was like, well, if America came into be 1776, then that would put us in the 240s. And so I actually looked up America's birth chart one day, and I noticed that America's Pluto is in Capricorn. I think it was like 27 degrees maybe. And I was like, oh snap, America is about to have a Pluto return. Ooh, America may be reaching the end of her life if she don't get right. And she will. There's going to be a huge transition. It's going to be like the person that went to rehab. It's like the person who was so strung out on drugs that they was always getting into trouble just to get some drug money. And you knew that they had like a decent heart and that they weren't that bad of a person, but they just got into the wrong thing and couldn't break the ties. And they try rehab and they fail multiple times. And it's like, America, I don't know how much longer your body can take this. So, we're doing that deep cleanse right now. But anyway, we were talking about Saturn. And I'm trying to explain to her what Saturn is. I'm like, oh, it's like a harsh teacher. And like Saturn and Capricorn, it does this because the energy of Capricorn is like that. It's like long term. It's like planning. It's like, if you want a 10-year plan, if you want to build a business from the ground up and have it standing like hundreds of years, okay, hundreds, like decades later, then you would go to Capricorn and you would do this and you do that. And she was like, oh, so it's like foundation. I was like, oh, yeah, perfect. Capricorn, Saturn, foundation. Foundational, right? But it's like I honestly feel it so much in that like harsh teacher, like so many of us just going through life because it runs directly opposite the sort of, not the narrative, the social narrative, because it runs directly opposite the social narrative. And because advertisers, products, business people capitalize off of our insecurities and desires. Everything is so external, it's not about the self. And Capricorn Foundation, Saturn and Capricorn Foundation, in this like in a Plutonian, like global type of way, is a foundation on the inside. Because we've tried different laws, we've tried different NGOs. Is that the word? What's it? Hey Siri, what's an NGO? Hold up. Hey Siri, what is an NGO?
Organizations which are independent of government involvement are known as non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, or non-government organizations.
Okay.
Would you like to hear
So
more?
NGOs, nonprofits, stuff like that. This is so. Somebody posted a video that was 33 minutes and 11 seconds long before I came live. And I'm looking at it, I was like 33:11. That's so interesting because I always see like 11:22 and 11:33. And then I look at the time and it was 11:33. Ah. um, I feel like I got the shadow running right across, but y'all can't, it doesn't show on the camera. Anyway, sorry. I know I'm all over the place. I'm reaching that point where it's like I need to be focused or just leave. There's so much happening right now. And it's like a lot of, it feels like a lot of little pieces finally coming together. If you on the new channel, it's like those mice assembling the cheese wheel, but it's fast. And when I did my personal New Year reading, I was like, oh my gosh, like things are about to get lighter in heaviness, but a lot busier. And it's time for me to like actually start to do everything that I have been putting in. And like the lockdown and the protests did help me unlock that final piece of using my voice, being unapologetically me. And it's interesting because I think back on some past scenarios and some past situations and how people would be like, oh, you know, don't get too cocky, don't let it go to your head, don't get an overly inflated ego, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. But also at the same time, if that's coming from a place of insecurity, if that's coming from a place of me growing and evolving and wanting to better myself, and you wanting to have that attachment to me but not wanting to do the same to the point where you're limiting me, you're holding me back, then hey, it ain't me being cocky, it ain't me being egoic, it's me knowing who I am, being in my power, and actually doing something within myself and within my life to create the me and the life that I want. And it just is what it is. I feel like my Chiron in Leo is running again. My Chiron in Leo is healed. Maybe a little bit too healed. But you know, Chiron, I'm sure he will go a little crazy after he finally get up out that wheelchair. He's like, I've spent eons like injured and helping other people and teaching other people warriorship. And to like to have my mobility back, girl, yeah, I might go a little wild. It is what it is. But also, you know, I'm supposed to be Queen of Cupsing this month. And it's interesting because I feel like I had the Queen of Cups first, but she really took a backseat when the Queens of Air and Fire came. But it's fine. We'll find a new balance. I have until November to be in my Empress energy. So, right, we're doing Cups now, Pentacles next month and by next month. And then everything on the external will begin to be as complete as it is on the internal. So, again, I don't know where I'm going with this, but we're just flowing. We're just flowing with this. I may be live for hours, you know, maybe hours. Um, but I do need to focus because I have like 15 different trains of thought going in 25,000 different directions. And he said, "How you have 15 trains in 25,000 directions? Magic." I don't know. Uh, Man, I really lost it though. Yeah, it was the big head thing. It was the ego. Like, there's so many things coming into the next phase of my life, coming into this new year. And it was May, last April, May, when I started to get into some stuff on YouTube, right? Like, I got my tarot cards November 2018. Before I got my cards, I watched an hour and a half or a 2 hour video cut between two videos, one going through the majors, the other going through the minors, numerologically and by suit, right? And then I got my own cards. It came with a guidebook, so that made it easy. And I just threw myself in. I was so intimidated by that. I used the animal spirits because I was like, I know animals, and even if I don't know animals, I can guess, right? And I still have the book, Wild Unknown Animal. And then when it came time to do the Wild Unknown Tarot, I was like, oof, that's 78 cards. It has a system that I don't know at all. Because again, by this point, I wasn't actually like watching tarot. I got my decks before I started watching it on YouTube, and the only experience I had with it before was 2016 when I went to one of the events on one of the buildings on campus, and I got a little tarot reading first from somebody. And oh my gosh, the reading that he gave me, that is so interesting. No, girl. Man, I wish I would have wrote it down. I don't think I did anywhere. Because at the time I was interested in somebody. And I was like kind of sort of debating if I wanted to say anything or not. And that came up in the reading, right? I didn't even ask about the person, it just came up. He was like, "Oh, what do you want to know about?" I was like, "I don't know, just like anything, right? I've never done this before. Just tell me whatever." And then like the cards started to come out, and I'm thinking about what I thought. It's like the scale of the reading then. It's on such a larger scale than I thought it was. And like what he read applies now as well, but now fits the scale of the reading more than like the person I had a crush on when I was like when I was several years into college, right? That's wild. That's crazy. That's so wild. Oh my gosh. I wish I could reach out to that man and be like, "What? How did you know?" And he's like, "It's the cards. You should know." I was like, "I know. I get it sometimes. Like we really think it's one thing, but then you live life and it evolves, right?" That's why I should preface everything that I do by saying it's timeless, because sometimes it's several months ahead of its time, but also sometimes I'm ahead of my time a little bit. But that's because, I'm preparing myself for the times in some way. And, like, I guess I'll talk about how I got into tarot right now, because why not? So, the first experience I had was 2016. It was 2016, because it was the year of the election before Bernie was out. So, it could have honestly been 15. But I think it was 16. Was I an RA by that point? I think so. I think I was. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure it was 16. Pretty sure it was 16, 2016. Fall 2016. Mhm. That sounds more right. Yeah, that sounds right. Fall 2016. And I remember because the person that I went with, we got a caricature drawn and he had a Bernie shirt on. And every single time I think back to this moment, his words ring true. He was like, "Oh, a Bernie Sanders shirt that will really mark this specific period in history because of the shirt that you're wearing as I draw this caricature." And he's right. Because every time I think back, I'm like, it was 2016 because it was an election year. Because of that Bernie shirt. The dude commented on it, the caricature artist commented on it, and he was right. And I got that reading. That was the first and only experience I actually had with tarot. Right? I was raised in the church. It was evil, it's demonic, and all kinds of stuff. It's witchcraft, spellcraft, evil, demonic. And then I always had an interest in it, which is why, I was really going to take advantage of that opportunity in 2016. But it was something that I never allowed myself to do because of how I was raised. And then that interest continued, right? And after my darkest night, I was like, you know what? Because I had a friend who got into her spirituality before I gave myself permission to discover mine. Right? And I knew that she was like, everything that I heard from her opened me up, right? And I've talked about this before, but we're just talk about it again for anyone who didn't know. So after my darkest night in October, I decided to just like discover my spirituality, right? And I've always been intuitive. I've always been connected, right? And it's like, it is what it is. And so, and like even when I wasn't necessarily religious, I was still connected. Because I always, in my own personal walk with religion, I was able to find my own connection, which is what it's supposed to do, right? But I was able to do that. And I actually disconnected with religion because something about it didn't sit right with what I knew and believed. Also, I was gay. I am gay. So that also didn't fit in with the narrative at the church I was going to growing up. And again, that wasn't the sole reason because I was already having issues before that and I talked about it already. And so when people ask me if I was religious, I would say I'm religious-ish. Like me and Jesus, like we're good, but we're like on a bit of a break right now. And people be like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's complicated. Right? We still talk, but... And then later I was like, you can't blame Source for its followers. That's not fair. Because no one's perfect. Right? It's not fair to, God or Jesus that there are some messed up Christians out there. Or there's some people who claim or tout the label of Christian or Christianity. Or like because the world works the way it does, whatever. So anyway, I said that because when I decided to order my decks, I did think about it a little bit because I was like, am I really going to do this? Because like... of what I was raised, and then it was like, well, it's time for me to start to forge my own path, and it doesn't feel wrong to me. And that's when, like, when I was going back and forth in my own mind, that's when I was like, okay, that's when I heard. It's like, you can get into divination, that's it. Tarot, oracle cards, anything to basically facilitate, aid, or ease that connection that's already there. Any tool that plays off of the connection that I already have, it's fine. Anything outside of that, when it came to like rituals and candle magic, this magic, that magic, spells and all, I was like, all of that is off limits. That's what I heard. Like all of that is off limits to you. Stick to divination. Anything else, like you have no need for, right? You're gonna be protected. You don't need to get into all that. I was like, okay, work. So I ordered my cards on Amazon, and they came in, right? November, they came in. And like I said, I watched the video on tarot because I knew that because of the little bit of research that I did when it came time to actually like buy the deck, I bought an oracle deck and a tarot deck. And I was like, well, what's the difference between Oracle and Tarot? And I was like, Tarot is an established system. It has a structure. Oracle cards are kind of sort of free floating. It's a free for all. It can be anything, whatever the artist intends. And Tarot can kind of be like that too, but it still has that same structure, the same backbone, right? And again, the animal spirits were animals. I was like, I can do that. And so I was so intimidated by the tarot because it's a system. And that's when the Capricorn in my chart kicked in, right? And that's when the researcher in me kicks in. And so I was like, you know what? I was flipping through the guidebook, looking at the spreads that they had. I saw the Celtic cross. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to dive full in. I'm just going to dive full in, even though I'm terrified that I'm going to be so lost and confused. And that first reading that I did brought me to tears. It was amazing. Again, like I had what each spread meant, and then I had the meaning from the card all in the guidebook. And then using that as a basis, I pieced it together. Like I already said, that's how I learn anyway, by simile, metaphor, and similarity, by drawing parallels between different things. And I was like, wow. And when I got into it, I was fresh off of that dark night. But my dark night, the source of my dark night was the fear and the worry and anxiety that I had about my own future and the limitations that they put on me. Also, it was related to me not completely being myself and the struggle of like managing that increasing desire to be more and more true to myself. And by that point, I had already gone through a semester of therapy, and that's one of the things that came up. And I already knew, right? I'm self-aware enough most of the time to know where my blockage and limitation is. So when I had those sessions, I just told him, I was like, oh, this is what's going on, and that's what's going on. He's like, oh wow, like you're so like self-aware, but also, where are your emotions? He's like, you're talking about yourself like you're talking about someone else who you kind of sort of don't even really too much care about. But in my mind, I'm like, well, this is what it is, right? It is what it is. And there are emotions that go behind it outside of this space. Yeah, but you're asking me a question right now, and I'm giving you the answer. Anyway, back to this. It ended up working out. It ended up bringing and highlighting a lot of the things within me that I was upset about, namely the fact that I have a lot of poor weather friends, or a lot of people who use and utilize, and then when they're good, they leave until they need a fill up, and then they come back, right? And so I had decided that I would just not, for that reason and many others, that I wouldn't get attached to people. And then that first Celtic cross, it was like, hey sis, like that ain't the way. You don't have to open up and be vulnerable. And it ain't to be, it was about establishing and creating boundaries, learning boundaries, basically. But when we're learning boundaries, it still requires that vulnerability. And at least in my opinion, I'm going to try to not be so absolute. From my perspective, and in my opinion, if you are getting a message that you need to establish healthy boundaries, or if you know that you need healthy boundaries, then it inherently involves a certain level of vulnerability. And if you're not, if you're too afraid to be vulnerable, then instead of boundaries, you're going to have walls. Right? But it's about it's almost like, if the wall is like a window that you can crank back in the day or push the button more like modernly. Y'all remember crank windows? Oh my gosh. The little Mazda. I miss that car now, but sometimes like flies would get caught in the back and they would bake in the sun, and then they'd just be like dead flies back there. I'm like, oh. But then you notice how iridescent they are because they stop moving, right? When they're just laying there, you can notice the iridescence of them. So, um, anyway, it's like, you move it up and down until you find that sweet spot, and then that's where it is, right? It's like not necessarily to be impenetrable, or it's not to be impenetrable, but it's not to be taken advantage of either. Or it is whatever you need it to be, or whatever you want it to be in your own personal life. For me, that's what it is. That's how I got into tarot, right? And then, so I was doing all of that using the guidebook and the spreads, and also I was on Tumblr, and that was another thing that came up before my darkest night. Some stuff related to my friend's interest areas or her spirituality, and then when I was like talking to her about what was coming up for me, and like what she was going through that same person, they also started like doing little tarot spreads, right? So I was like, ooh, that's interesting. And when I was on their channel or on their page, I saw that they would also post spreads sometimes. So sometimes I would like look up a spread. Um, and I think they would do like in October, maybe they would, or September or October, they would do this like tarot everyday type thing. And it was a hashtag, so lots of people would do it. And they would also post the spreads that they use. So every now and then I would use a spread out of the book, and I would use all the meanings. I never went back to rewatch that video again, even though I wanted to. I was just like, ah. And then I got into astrology. And I got into astrology because of somebody that I thirst followed on Snapchat. So, like, when I thirst follow people on Snapchat, I don't even necessarily too much pay attention to them, honestly. But one day, and like, his Snapchat isn't like, it's not a constant stream of thirst traps, right? It's kind of sort of like vloggy, honestly. But anyway, we being real honest. Um, I noticed in January 2019, no, it was late December, because I was already home from the semester. So it was mid to late December. And I noticed that he was like doing morning meditations and stuff, right? And I was talking to him about it. And I was like, wow, that's so interesting. That's the first time I reached out to him. And there was a sort of kinship bond there, familiarity there. Um, and he was like, oh, this is Abraham Hicks. You should give her a listen, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, okay. But then I didn't, because I'm me. And then, after a week or two, I would see what like the other meditations were talking about. And she said something one day, and I was like, hey, what was the name of her? What's her name again? And he was like, oh, it's Abraham Hicks. Look her up on YouTube. You can find her stuff. So that's how I got into Abraham Hicks, the law of attraction, and stuff like that. And then, not too long after that, maybe a month or so later, one of his buddies started doing tarot stuff. And he would share his buddies' things on his story, right? And I was like, oh, like I'm also getting into tarot. And so I reached out to his friend, which is kind of sort of uncharacteristic of me. There are a few things that I've done that are uncharacteristic of me, but it's led to some of the relationships that have grown and evolved me the most, right? And by this point, like I'm fairly intuitive, right? And so I'm like, something is telling me to reach out, so I'll just reach out, right? And so I reached out to the first dude, and he replied. I was shocked. I reached out, and he actually told me to reach out to the second dude too, because by that point I was a little bit more into Abraham Hicks, source, the vortex, law of attraction, all of this other stuff that's making sense. I'm like, yes, okay. And he was like, this dude is like really good and blah blah blah. So I sent him a message. I was like, hey, and he replied, and he actually would talk about astrology sometimes. And he gave me my birth chart. He was like, well, do you know what your birth chart is? I was like, no, I don't know what my birth chart is. I don't know. And he printed it off for me, and he was like, or he didn't. He sent me a picture of the birth chart, and he was like, "Okay, you're gonna have to look up what all these placements mean because I'm still learning it myself. But here's your birth chart." And I was like, "Okay." So then I went to Google and I started googling the placements. I was like, there is so much information. I don't know how to consolidate all of this. And he was like, "Oh, well, what I did was I typed in one of my placements. I went to YouTube. I watched like between 5 and 7 different astrologers. I found who resonated the most, and then I followed them and I watched them for their other placements." And he was like, "Here are some of the people who hit for me. The people who hit for him didn't necessarily hit for me, so I did as he suggested, and then I found one person, and that was my primary astrology. That was my first astrology person, right? And that was Dolo. I guess I'll just throw everybody out there. Dolo the Pilot Man. And when he was like, at that point, some of the videos were like a year to 2 years old. And so by the time I got into Dolo, like he had already gone through my placements for the most part, so I didn't have to wait for him, right? And then I would tune into some of his lives sometimes, and Shonda would come in and he would shout her out. And that's when I got into Shonda Rhimes. And I credit her primarily as like the person that I learned astrology from, even though I did find Dolo first. But I feel like with Dolo, that was me like looking at my personal placements. And with Shonda, that's when I got like this broader sort of understanding because I wasn't narrowing it down to be so specific. Right. And then it was from Shonda that I actually, there was someone that I got into off of her channel that actually did tarot. And that's what got me into the tarot on YouTube, even though I had already been doing it myself for several months. Right? Because like whenever I get into something like that, it's like I'd rather build my own relationship with it. Right? And I wanted to learn the system. And again, like me learning the system before that was like reading. Before the second person was like, yeah, I just like go to YouTube instead of like reading it, because if I read it, it would take forever. So I didn't like, besides that first little tarot intro video I got into, and then Daily Tarot Girl popped up somewhere in there. But in one of the first videos that I watched from her, she was like, you should sit down with your deck and build your own relationship. I was like, okay, cute, work. So that's what I'm going to do. It kind of sort of reaffirmed what I was already doing. So I still didn't like get into it, right? That was my primary exposure, was like, DIY, LIY. And like there are resources, but do it yourself, learn it yourself, form your own connections with the cards and with the meetings and stuff like that. So that's what I did. Also, somewhere around that time, I found Benabel Wen had started her Chinese exoteric series, Buddhist and Taoist esotericism, right? And that's how I found her. And then I later discovered that she also did tarot, and then she made a deck. I was like, oh my gosh, what? She's one of my favorites. She just brings so much of everything to everything that she does. Like, if I were like, I feel like a lot of my role models, I don't really have role models. A lot of the people that I draw inspiration from typically are females. And I guess she kind of sort of reminds me of this other person that I knew who was like always on top of her game, and who put so much intention and thought into everything that they did. Like, that was inspiring to me, because it's like a level of effort that I don't give myself permission to put into a lot of things, honestly. Because then I'll be like, oh, this is too much work. I just want to be done. Like, let's pull a random card and see. Yeah, see, I knew it would happen. You see how the numbers are cut off down there? I was like, it would be too much work to go back and fix the 5 cards. Hey, Casey. I'll be like, it would be too much work to go back and fix the 5 cards that had numbers cut off. Oh, wow. This is the Ace of Spades. I think this came out for Pisces. Tapping into the seed of all creation, understanding what predates all, things that must remain in the dark. Oh, is that my shut up card? Is that my don't go too into it card? Okay. So I ain't gonna go too into it because the card told me to pull back a little bit. But anyway, it was a series of events from me reaching out to somebody on Snapchat, getting connected to somebody in astrology who led me to YouTube astrologers that then led me to tarot, like May. I'm pretty sure it was like the month of May. Maybe late April into May. Thank you. It's the Weaver Tarot. This is the Ascendant edition. I also have the Journeyman edition. And they're like multicolored. It's I can't really get them to show up, but they got like little rainbows, little different colors. It's gorgeous. How are you doing, Casey? I am doing amazing. I feel like I'm in a really, really good position in my life, and I am so extremely thankful and grateful and proud of myself. How are you? But yeah, that got me into tarot on YouTube. And then I noticed that one day Benabel posted something about the tarot community and how it was turning toxic or something. But that was before I got into a lot of different readers. And then I discovered how toxic the community actually is and how it's all about ego and drama and some other stuff. But it's just YouTube in general. Anybody trying to build a platform, it's competition. Um, I'm glad to hear it, Casey. And so that was a whole journey. And I think some people thought that I was into it longer than I was. But I'm just like a few months. Like by the time the first stuff started popping off, I was literally like, what, maybe 2 months into the scene. I'm over here thinking that everybody is nice and that, we're all trying to grow and evolve and better ourselves. And then the competition and the ego starts to come out, and like we're all humans, like no one's perfect, so it's understandable. But then it was like just like being in the church, right? Everyone is like saved and sanctified and holier than thou, but everyone got their own little dramas, and people are like talking about people and gossip. I'm just like, oh my gosh. I mean, I guess if it happened in the church, it can happen in spirituality on YouTube. No one's exempt from being human. We're all human. But I'm just like, you know what? I'm not about this. Like this is not why I'm getting into it. So I'm just gonna move on. I'm gonna kindly just move on. Um but yeah, that's how I got into it. Long story short. Ooh, church people giving each other the finger after mass, exactly. You be in the parking lot at the church sometimes and oh wait, I need my OBS up. Okay, there we go. Because this is live. Um you be in the parking lot sometimes and people going off. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, and again, that's another reason why I was like, this building is just a building full of people. And I don't want to, like, I want something that's a little less adulterated. I want something that's a little more direct than that. So the people, the egos, the information, that's what I'm after. And again, it was to me always about sort of forging my own connections, and that's why I got into the tool for me, right? Like I already said. I can't even remember why I got into all of that. I don't know. I'm just like flowing today. Yeah. So the cards on the table are the Five of Cups and the Eight of Cups. This is, wait, is this the 5 or the 7? I think that's, yeah, it's the 5 and the 8. Ooh, the 5 of Cups and the 8 of Cups. This is interesting. Because that's like pulling out of situations that no longer serve and then just straight up walking away. Oh, that's why. Because Queen Cup, the Tower came out in her Pisces video. And it was very much this 5 of Cups, 8 of Cups Tower energy that came out in her Pisces video. And she's using these cards this month. And so it's interesting. That was one of the stories that came out in the Pisces video. And I was already talking about how I ain't gonna keep myself stuck for other people. So I know I love them. I love these cards so much. Okay. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Is there anything else? Man, it's just I can't believe that first reading I got that long ago. I really thought it was about something else or someone else. And like honestly, I was like, well, some of this sounds like I said, like the scope of what he gave me then a lot more accurately reflects the scope now and the gravity now in the situation now, more so than it did back then. And it's like without even, I'll talk about how I got into the whole twin flame narrative, because without even like saying anything about twin flame, and definitely without knowing anything about twin flames in 2016, that was kind of sort of like the gravity of the relationship that he was talking about, right? And so my first exposure with twin flame came April, May, like May, June. It was like May, June, right? And when did I find? Oh yeah, that's how. Okay, all right. I was like, that happened multiple times. It's a matte finish. It's pretty nice. I feel like the card quality is really nice, and they are fairly easy to shuffle, but they are a little big. Like I go from this deck to like pretty much any other deck besides the huge Oracle card deck that I have, and I'm like, okay. And the Ganeshas, those are big. So they're fairly large, not extremely. I feel like excellent quality, great to shuffle. And I actually reached out to the team of people who created this, and I was like, hey, like I got some visual stuff going on. Is there any way I could get a digital version of the PDF companion guidebook? And they sent it to me. So now I have it on my phones, and I can flip the colors and just like read it, and it's amazing. And it's, I mean, I guess some of the other decks I have, I got through like Amazon. The SKT, I bought the edition of the SKT that came with a PDF version of the guidebook or the ebook, so I didn't like need that. But it was really nice that they actually responded and they got back to me very quickly, or pretty quickly too. So I am extremely, extremely satisfied. If my lighting setup was a little bit better, I feel like I'd complain a little bit less. I'm like, oh wait, well it's showing up today. Who did? Who is this? Oh gosh, I'm so over this devil energy. Oh, give me a break. Give me a break. Bottom of the deck is this the Seeker of Coins? Yep, it's the Seeker of Coins. And I love the symbolism. So the Seeker of Coins is the page of coins. And basically this tells me that if, like, we can use the wisdom that we've gained from previous situations as the key to unlock a whole new world, to unlock a whole new earth. Right? Is this the Lovers? Oh, snap, with the Lovers behind that. Okay. You see that? The Lovers. Oh, they're actually showing up fairly nicely today. Pull the Sun card. Okay, let's go looking for the Sun card. We'll go from the bottom of the deck. If I can remember what it looks. Oh, yeah, I know what it looks like. The Sun card is actually one of the mascots for this deck. I think it is the mascot. On the, let's see, where did I put the box? Because you can see on the side of the box, like that's the sun in this deck. I was like, oh, interesting. Oh, here we go. Okay, I'm just making a mess. It's fine. Here it is right here. I do want to see what it's around too. So we have the 9 of coins, And the Ace of Swords around the sun. That's interesting. Here's all three of them that you can kind of see. Here is the sun card. So you see the sun at the top and then the moon and the star at the bottom. I love it. Gemini card. Oh, I've recently discovered that, like, especially, no, not even through college, just like growing up, the people who I crush on are typically Geminis. And the people who I'm really good friends with, or the people who I just like naturally gravitate towards in a platonic way, are Virgos. And I was like, what? I'm like, everybody I crushed on in college is a Gemini. Even now, I'm like, more Geminis? What? And then if someone's like, I'm looking at Virgo season, and I'm like, these are all the people I want to be friends with. And like, I do have several Virgo best friends. Is it that? Oh yeah, I pulled the devil energy out. Yeah, okay, let's see. Well, we'll grab one of these for the devil. I'm so tired of this energy. Gemini and Virgo. Oh yeah, it is Mercury rulers. I didn't even think about that. Or Mercury ruled planets. Well, because my Mercury is retrograde natally, but I do like mercurial energy, honestly, though. Especially like that Gemini. Like, I love talking to Geminis and like the conversation. Okay, let's see. Let's get 1 to 2 cards for this energy, since it wants to pop out so much, you know. I'm just like over it. Maybe someone's going through a hard time right now. I don't want to say that ain't my problem, but see, I'm so mean. I miss being nice. We have a Jack and a Joker. That's interesting. So, oops. The Jack of Diamonds is a full recognition of the self that has yet to be realized, being spurred into action and aligning the bodies. The Black Joker is prophetic dreams, inspired action, and tapping into the other side. We have being spurred into action, but we also have inspired action. But the inspired action comes because we are aligning the bodies. And that's ultimately what devil energy is for. It's for getting us to see the own sort of like the weaknesses and the faults within ourselves, right? And the energy is there to be overcome, not to be succumbed to. Ultimately, it's like you can let it do that, because I mean, I guess it would like to think that it's there to control, but in reality, it's like it's there for us to evolve by breaking that control, by seeing through the illusion, and by tackling all the things that we run from to the battle towards. I know, right? That's why I love Geminis. I am a Pisces. It is a Capricorn card. I don't. Oh, well, I guess I kind of have been in Capricorn energy. I've been a little hard butt, a little hard booty, right? A little calloused on the cheeks. Not the wateriest lately. Yeah. I mean, and honestly, I feel like that's one of the reasons why. It's not that I don't feel sympathy, but that's one of the reasons why I'm not like. Because it's like, it's at that point in time where it's like, if we did the shadow work when we were initially guided to do the shadow work, a lot of us wouldn't be in the positions that we're in now if we're having difficulty. And I do feel like that's a little bit uncaring, but at the same time, it is what it is. Right? And that's no one's fault but our own. If we didn't do whatever it was that we were supposed to do, it's our own fault. And if you intentionally doing things or intentionally not doing things, and you come crying to me with the sob story, like, I am that friend. And a lot of people don't like it. But I'm that friend. I'm like, girl, well, what did you expect? Like, you already knew what was up. Like, in the moment, I'll be like, oh, that's unfortunate. But, like, Like, we already talked about this several times, and you already knew that it was what it was. Like, why are you surprised? And sometimes I am that. Like, it's time for a dose of reality, because continuing to pacify, it's just keeping you stuck in these cycles, and then ultimately you're just gonna come crying back to me. And it's not that I'm complaining about you crying, but it's like, I don't want to continue to be in this position where you're hurt and I can't do anything. It's like the most I can help you do is like try to get you to realize and see how you're keeping yourself in these situations, right? And sometimes it does come off a little cold, but that's the energy of Saturn. And Saturn is my guiding planet. My ruling planet is Venus, but my guiding planet is Saturn. So I have this Venus Saturn connection. That's the Pisces in me, I guess. Either I'm like Venus or I'm Saturn. No in between. Exactly, Casey. Yeah, we already talked about this. Like, you already knew that this would happen. Like, I don't know. Understanding the unseen, grasping the subtle, and a sacred vessel, Ace of Clubs. This came out for Virgo. It was interesting because, and there are, so, no, this is the Four of Wands, or the Four of Clubs. Sorry, that's the Four of Clubs, not the Ace of Clubs. Because Gemini got the Black Joker, Virgo got the Ace of Clubs, Pisces got the Ace of Spades, and then Sagittarius broke the little mutable thing by getting the Two of Clubs. And I was like, wow, Sagittarius. At least you could have got an ace. It's fine. But they were all ones. It was like, Gemini 1 and the Joker. Virgo 1, Ace of Clubs. Pisces 1, Ace of Spades. Sagittarius 2. Sagittarius is like, I can't be confined. You're not going to control me that easily. I'm not going to fall into place. Anybody with, I'm going to start looking at Sagittarius energies and where their Uranus falls. Or maybe not, I don't know. Or the Saturn. I don't remember the message, but I guess I can find it real quick since you're a Gemini. No, I think that was the one that was about prophetic dreams, I think. But, we'll see. What? Hold up. I got a face down card. Wait, what? How I get 3 face down cards? King of Clubs, 6 of Spades, Ace of Diamonds. Let's see where that Joker is. It just came out, actually. What the freak? Why I got King 10 Ace? Okay, so something about kings and aces. I'm loving that. Let's see if we can find it. Let's see if we can find it real quick. There's the red Joker. That's a card that's been coming out a fair amount. Here it is. Yeah, the Black Joker is prophetic dreams, inspired action, and tapping into the other side. The numbers are 89, 2, 3, 6, 3, and 1. So 2 3s. That's the Black Joker. But let's see, what else? Yeah, this, I'm just like, oof. And it's just been so wild. It's just, oof. There are some abilities that I kind of want to tap into a little bit more, but then I don't, because I don't want to get that into anyone's space. I would have to really, really trust somebody before I try to do that, because the one time I did that, I tapped in. It was not great. And I can kind of sort of see what I had already seen. But again, it's one of those things that you can't necessarily warn people about. All we can do is, try to encourage each other to do what it is that we need to do. And if we don't do that, then, I mean, and it didn't feel easy at all. But man, that's why I was like, oof, if that wasn't done before now, I don't even know how. But oh, a riddle! I love riddles. There are 5 frogs sitting on a log. 4 decided to jump off. How many frogs are on the log? 5 frogs. Because you didn't say that they went through with the action. They decided to jump off, but they didn't actually do it, did they, Casey? There's still 5 frogs on that log, aren't there? If the answer is 5, that just clarifies everything that I've been saying and feeling. Yep. See, Casey with the sink. I knew it. That's. Oh goodness. Decision is not action. Casey. Oh, that's the title. I'm putting that on here right now. Thank you, Casey. Decision is not action. I'm like, hold up, wait. Where it at though? Oh, because I'm still live. Oh my goodness. I'm just like, yeah, I knew it. I was like, yeah. But we all have why can I not find this? We all move in our own time. And we all kind of sort of approach things when we're ready. Right? But from what I was feeling back in March, April, it was like I would hate for somebody to reach a certain point to realize that they were the only person standing in their way. But, sure, why not? Oh, no, I want to do it this way. Yeah. Okay. I love that I can do that on my phone while I'm still live. Oh, wait. There's an edit button right here. I could have did it on my computer. Oh, well. It's fine. So what is this deck for again? So this deck is for kind of sort of illuminating those things in the dark, right? But it's primarily about spiritual blockages or just spirituality in general. Oh my gosh. Everything just spilling out the front. Okay, we'll keep these on here. And because I did this spread, in the book there's this spread where you can kind of sort of like see what the cards want to be used for, right? And for this deck, I remember, I can't even remember everything, but it was like, what do you want to be used for? It was like, if you could introduce yourself to me in one card, what would it be, right? That was the first position. Wait, did I actually lose any cards? I'm going to have to count them. I thought one of them fell over. Ooh. And when it was like, what is your strength? The Ace of Cups came out. I was like, oh snap, is a deck telling me that it wants to be used for love? And then the next position was, what is your limitation? And then the Lovers popped out. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, it was so funny. Because I was really like, Ace of Cups, oh snap. And then the Lovers came out as the limitation. I was like, oh, gotcha. Got it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Ooh, that card might have come out. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. Because I guess we're doing 15s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9. 6, 7, 8, 9, 50. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 60. I'm like trying to do math in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 70. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm missing 2 cards. Okay, so they are on the floor. Whew, goodness. Right. Alright, give me 1 second. I'm going to have to dive down there. See, this deck is like, see, this is why I told you not to use me on live. Ouch. If things shake a little bit, know that everything is okay. Oh, found them. And it's 2 cards. Who are they? We got, they're in reverse. Oh, the 8 of Cups again. The 8 of Cups and the Ruler of Coins. But they were both in reverse. So it could be that, like, I don't know. We'll see. Right. We'll see. Whew. Hold up. Oh. We'll just put these 2 up here. No, we won't do that. So the first card is the Hanged One. The Hanged One is the Hangman. And this is interesting because of the cards that fall on the table, but we'll read it sequentially. So with the Hanged One coming out first, in this deck it's symbolized by a rose, and roses are symbolic of love. Now, I'm looking at this rose. Oh yeah, there are the thorns. The thorns aren't huge though. The thorns on this rose are so small that I don't know if it's just the stem. Right? There aren't any like super huge thorns on this rose. Oh, this is all in the mind. Oh, I didn't even finish talking about how I got into the twin flame thing, did I? So basically, yeah, I think I did. When the first exposure I had to it, May and June, was talking about all of the bad aspects of the twin flame journey, and about how people use the twin flame label to justify abuse, infidelity, and cheating, and third party relationships and stuff like that. And so everything I heard about it was like, twin flames are bad because they do this and they do that. But something about the concept in general resonated to me, but the way that it was being told and lived out, that from my perspective, didn't. So that ain't my journey, because I'm not the type of person who could do that. I have too much of my mother in me. Neither one of us would be able to do that. But something about it resonated. I was like, it doesn't feel like it's completely false, but it does feel a little bit misguided. And then the more I got into everything, I was like, oh, this is starting to feel like some low-key devil type energy that would stall people who would otherwise make progress on their journeys inward. And the other thing about it is that a lot of times when we come across information like that, it seems we project people who we already know into that space, even if it's no one that we know. But we cling so hard to who most fits that description sometimes that we don't allow ourselves the space and opportunity to grow, to discover who that person actually is for us, right? But again, different journeys for different folks. And I mean, the Eight of Cups and the Ruler of Coins fell down on the table in reverse, which is like not walking away from a situation keeps you out of your abundance, and it keeps you out of your stability. It keeps you out of that position of power in the material realm, right? Because if there's a blockage in the 3D, if there's a blockage in the realm, it's probably because of something outside of the realm itself, right? Something emotional, something mental, or something disconnected from the self, something disingenuous, something incomplete. 222. Oh, snap. Yeah. So, but also, you know, I feel like that's another thing that I've gotten, or that I've always sort of been decent at, again, because I do have my own relationship. And even when I wasn't listening, and that's why I know pretty much what all of my blockages are, right? And for me, it was just about no longer, it was about elevating myself to the point and healing enough where I wouldn't allow what I knew was blocking me to continue blocking me. But it's like I'm connected enough to know what resonates for me and what doesn't resonate for me. And sometimes it's like partial resonance. And I haven't found anything or anyone that completely 100% resonates for me. And so it kind of sort of makes me a little bit nomadic, where I'll kind of sort of, it's like a traveling scholar, right? I'll make a pit stop here, I'll learn what I can, and then I move on to the next thing. I'm like, it's within me to continuously grow. And I think that's why I have Scorpio in my descendant, because if I'm going to have a long term relationship or a long term commitment to someone, I need it to be someone who can continuously grow, who can continuously transform, and who doesn't get stuck or complacent in places and spots where no one is happy, right? And I think that's one thing that kind of sort of keeps me now from forming like really, really, really significant attachments. Because it's like if we're reaching the point where I'm no longer growing or evolving, then it's not it for me. And like I do pride myself on being compassionate and patient and understanding. So there honestly has been a little bit of an internal struggle. And it's not really a struggle, but it's like this redefining who I am and allowing the qualities that I appreciate about me to evolve and grow as I step more and more into self love. And as I step more and more into healthy boundaries, and as I step more and more into not giving energy to situations where it's not valued, appreciated, or used. Right? Because it's like if I'm not repeating the same cycles over and over and over and over and over again, especially after I know how to break them or I know what I need to do, then it's not within me to tolerate it, because then it slows me down and it keeps me stuck, and that's not what I'm about. So I was like, oh, Scorpio and the Descendant for me, perfect. Because that's honestly, that's what I would need in a relationship and a partnership. But also, I would need some flexibility. And I think that's why I have Sagittarius on my 8th house cusp, because Sagittarian energy can get kind of sort of fixed in its direction. And I'm much too expansive for that. So, you know, have to learn together and apart, grow together. Exactly. So, when she was like, "Oh, you have Scorpio on your seventh house. This is the type of person you need in a relationship." I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly right." And also, I have Pluto in my seventh house, so Pluto in Scorpio in my seventh house, and my Pluto is in retrograde. So, so that's what this is, and that's how that was my introduction to Twin Flame, and and again, it's not the reason why I made this deck. But I love that I made this deck because it fills a niche that I wasn't finding. And I can be pretty particular about some things. I'm not really particular about a lot of things, but the things that I am particular about, I'm extremely fixed and stubborn on. I'm a Taurus moon and rising, so right, I like stubborn. It's like my self identity doesn't necessarily change too much. And that's another thing, like I mentioned earlier, that I'm also having to relax a little bit, right? It's like I can't be so quick to say that I don't like or want something if I haven't even tried it, because I might find out that I actually like it. And that's the case with life. But also sometimes it's like things have to mature to the point where it's like enjoyable, right? Like my taste buds. I hated vegetables until I was 26, and now I don't mind them. Also, it's probably related to some like mental stuff and some other stuff because the mind, the body, and the spirit are all connected. And when I started nourishing my mind and spirit, then naturally my body was ready to be nourished as well. So, Oh, I drank too much water yesterday. I want to take another sip, but Shona, oh snap, I got two Geminis in the chat. Gemini love. I love Geminis. Hi. Welcome. Hey Shona. Yep, it can be rough. I actually have I got Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius placements. So I can be extremely fixed. But that's another thing that I've been learning for almost a year now. Is how to be a little bit more fluid and how to be a little bit more flexible. And it's interesting because I feel like I'm going back to that fixed position. But also, like I'm said, I'm learning like healthy boundaries and self love. And it completely changes the game, honestly. Because now I'm like, I got to do what I got to do for me. Right? I don't know. It's interesting. Gemini love. I know that's right. I love Geminis. Okay, so let's get into these little things. So we're starting with the Hanged One. The Hanged One is going back to the title of the video. Decision is not an action. I feel like the Hanged One is really good at adopting another perspective and deciding on something, but it won't necessarily act on it. And it puts the Hanged One in an interesting position because it already more or less goes against the grain. And so it feels that not greatness from not fitting in. But then it also feels doubly not great because it doesn't do all the time. It doesn't always do what it is that it wants to do. So now we're like doubling up on the not great feeling because not only are we different than our surroundings, maybe, but also we're not doing what it is that we want and that we desire. So you've had to control your mind so that it doesn't control you. Yeah, I mean, like, when it comes to like my mental state, I've definitely had to do that. Right? That's like, well, it started as control, but then it's like it became my new normal fairly quickly. Because I went through my darkest night in October. And then by January, I was catching up with one of my friends. She was like, "Hey, how are you doing?" I was like, "I'm like really good, and I'm surprisingly not depressed right now. Like, I don't want to jinx it, but I'm surprised that I'm not depressed." And I haven't really been since then. And depression is something that I struggled with like all my life. Right? I even went on an antidepressant. I'm bad with keeping up with things. I don't have any Virgo in my chart at all. I have energy in literally every zodiac sign except Virgo. And Capricorn saves me because I have a 10th house in Capricorn. So when I'm on the clock, when I'm working, I can be extremely organized and everything. But if I'm not on the clock, I'm just disorganized. It's chaotic. It's a mess. Um, and so I was really good with keeping up with the medication until I missed one day. And then missing one day turned into not taking it at all. But it was like really good initially. But it kind of sort of reached the point where the medication did everything that it could do for me. Because again, I wasn't facing the reasons why I was depressed. And at first, again, like at first it was good, but then when I actually hit that episode, I was like, oh, this isn't helping. And then I did both individual therapy and group therapy. Group therapy was interesting because someone was like, he asked a question about something. And I was like, oof, I don't know what the answer is. I just wait until I stop being as depressed and my brain starts to function more normally again. Because if I'm doing if I'm in the middle of a depression, I can't just pull myself out of it. But honestly, one of the most life changing things, and one of the things that changed the whole game for me, that I think that was spring 2018. One of the things that changed the whole game for me was when one of the conductors of the group therapy session said that, like, we have slips and then we have slides. Because I was talking about how, like I would get depressed, like how I would slide into depression, right? It would start with 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. I would skip class because I wasn't, I was in that space. And then a few days would turn into a few weeks, and then I would feel bad about all of the class that I missed, and that would cause me to miss more class because I didn't want to show up after I hadn't been to class, and I wouldn't go to class until it get to the point where it's like it's been 4 weeks, like 3 to 4 weeks, and I haven't been to class. Like I have to show up, and that was like the pattern that I kept falling into. And she was like, because she could hear by the way. Well, it's like I had mentally conditioned myself where like one day, one hard night, depression for 1 day turns into depression for 3 to 5 weeks. And that was the pattern that I had established. And so when I started to slip into it, it was like the slipperiest slope. But then, oh, I ain't even been on the chats. I'm sorry, y'all. But then she was like, we don't always have to slide into it. You can slip, right? It could be a 1 day or 2 day thing. You don't it doesn't have to be this several weeks long thing. And like just hearing her say that mentally, it started to change things for me, right? And so by the time January 2019 came and I was working on everything, that pattern in my mind had already been broken. And so there were hard nights, of course. There were tough days, of course. I don't think it ever lasted for more than like 2 days by that point. But because since that mental program had already been rewritten, in my I didn't need for it to be that long. Because she had already helped me go in and rewrite that program. Where it's like, okay, depression can be a 1 day, 2 day thing. It doesn't have to be like several weeks long. And I haven't been like that depressed since. And I don't know, it's like my mind is just different now. It doesn't even slip the way that it used to. Because it's like I start catching myself already, right? It's like I can slip, but I'm not gonna hit the ground. I'm not gonna fall. And if I do, I might run away from something for like 2 days if it's particularly like drastic. But after the second day, it's like, okay, it's time to get back into it. We're not turning this into a slide. And I haven't slid since then. I don't know. It just helped me. And don't one bad hour turn into a bad day. Exactly. We can stay on top of it. You have no water, not a drop. Casey, what? Far too flaky, Shona? Gotcha. Oh, water in the chart. Casey, I thought you was dehydrated over there. I'm so sorry. And then Shona's like, I got a drop of Scorpio. And then I was like, oh, we're talking about in the chart. Yeah, yeah, okay. Oh. All right, Shona, thanks for stopping in. It was fun. Even though it was kind of deep, it was enjoyable. Thanks. Have a good rest of your. Wait, is it the evening time over there? It might be the evening for you. If it's the evening, have a lovely evening, Shona. Oh, what is in my eye? I feel like I got a eyelash in my eye. Okay, so that's this hanged one, and the many reasons why we could slide, and all of the different baggage that we carry because. And I remember being like, man, I wish I could just be a robot. I wish I could just do everything that I need to do and just be perfect and not have a heart. And my mind only is focused on doing what I need to do. I wish I had more air and earth in my chart. I'm sorry. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not Gemini air though, because Gemini air is mutable. More like Aquarius and Earth. I wish I had more Aquarius and Earth in my chart, but maybe Libra. Maybe not air. I just wish I had straight up Saturn. Yeah, I was like, I wish I was just a Capricorn, Saturn stellium and just all about doing what makes sense. But that was back in the past. You're well hydrated, but no water in your chart. I only had if I include, so I'm including my North Node, South Node, and Chiron. With my North Node, South Node, and Chiron, I have a grand fire trine, a grand air trine, a grand earth trine. No, I don't have the grand earth trine. I have a grand fire trine between Venus, Chiron, and my North Node, a grand air trine between Saturn, Jupiter, and my South Node, a grand water trine between my IC, Mercury, and Pluto, and then I have a trine. It's a fairly loose trine because my moon is like 27 degrees Taurus, and then I have Uranus and Neptune both at 20 degrees Capricorn. So it's trined up. 5 planets in your 10th house. What? But I feel like that's worked for you. Because I feel like usually whenever like I hear about stelliums, it sounds like it's an area of difficulty for people. But I mean from the very like surface level stuff that I know about you, Casey, I feel like you don't struggle in the 10th house area. So Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Gemini. Oof. Oh wow, you're a new moon baby? I think somebody said that like if you she said something like if you have a new moon in your birth chart, then that means that like you're on your last life cycle or something like that, like you're about to be done. I've never heard of anything outside of that, but I think that's what she said. I don't know. All 10th. Mars, Venus, and Taurus. All in the 10th. Mars and Venus in Taurus. That's so interesting. I have... My planets are all over the place. All over. The most planets I have in the same house is 2. I have 2 planets in my 9th house. I have 2 planets in my 9th house. And then I have 2 planets in my 12th house. And I have 2 planets in my 12th house because my 12th house is huge. So I have Aries intercepted in my 12th house. So my 12th house starts in Pisces and it ends in Taurus. So my Venus in Aries is literally smack dab in the middle of my 12th house. Aries rules nothing in my chart because it's not cusping a house. And I'm like, there's my drive. My drive is gone. My Mars is in Cancer, and Mars doesn't like being in Cancer. I'm like, this is why I struggle with motivation. But he has 2 yods. Oh, snap. I don't think I have any yods, which is interesting. Or I would have to, because a yod, that's like a sextile, and I guess that would be inconjuncts. Because it's like a sextile here, and then the quincunx, right? Maybe? I don't know. Yeah, and people say Mars and Cancer make you a little crazy too. I see it. It's just because my emotions be all over the place. Like when I get mad, my temper is up and down, and I can't stop thinking about what made me mad. It's a fire that feeds itself, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. Hold up. Okay. So we're going from the Hanged One to the Moon. Both of those are Piscean energy, which is interesting. So that's Pisces and its planetary ruler of Neptune. Going from the Hangman into the Moon, honestly, it's like that's an energy of like we don't know how good life could actually be if we give ourselves permission to be us, to be real, to be authentic. And I think when we're in that hangman position and we know that we've encountered a lot of resistance to our natural self, it makes us feel like we'll never find acceptance anywhere. But when you act from a place of authenticity, then you can attract into your experience, or you can navigate yourself until you find that place where you belong, where you're celebrated instead of ostracized. And it's really an energy of like, it honestly, I know it's the moon, but it feels like devil energy. Because we put ourselves in the dark and we make ourselves prey to devil energy by not believing that we can be who we know we are and we can get what we want and we can do what we want. It keeps us in this energy of settling, and like we were already depressed enough. There was already enough of a motivation to be depressed through being an outsider and not being who you really are and not doing what you really would prefer to do. Excuse me. And then we come in with the moon card. Hold up. Oof. Hey, there was less mucus that time. I promise it only comes up when I read. I'm like, oh. It didn't even come up though. I was like, oh, I'm proud of whatever that was. Somebody's clearing up something somewhere. But the moon card can also like, it could be also like depression and stuff like that, anxiety and worry and a racing mind or an unsettled spirit. And then here we come with the 9 of Wands. Girl, this is not positive. I feel like the 9, but I guess this is about sort of, this deep stuff. Deep. Just the phrase, hanged man, makes me laugh. Oh, Casey. I count Chiron as a planet now, especially when you heal it. Well, even when it's not healed. I count Chiron as something that has the potential to be a planet. And honestly, Chiron feels like, I don't even know what the aspect of Chiron would be. It almost feels like a mix between Mars, Neptune, Jupiter, and Venus. Because it's like when Chiron is, it's almost like this hanged one moon type energy. But after you come out of that, then it's like it's the sun, and every day is a blessing, right? It's a reawakened passion. It's it's everything that you didn't allow yourself to do or be when you were tied and bound and feeling restricted. It's that freedom. Chiron is the planet of, it's not a planet of freedom. But yeah, I would count it Chiron as something with the potential to be a planet. Chiron is an asteroid question mark who is mythologically tied to the wounded healer, who was the trainer of many, 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 many heroes, and who taught many like medicine and stuff like that. He wasn't immortal, but he was wounded. And the whole story behind Chiron, I've looked into it before. He comes up a few times because Hercules would go to Chiron for advice sometimes when it came to, or a few, maybe once or twice when it came to the labors. And it may have been the Erymanthian boar when Hercules went to meet with some of the centaurs. They had the wine of Dionysus that was not tempered at all. The centaurs got drunk on literally just the vapors from the wine. They started going buck wild. Hercules started killing them because that was his solution with arrows tipped in poison from the Hydra. So poison, and like the centaur that he primarily went to meet with was so confused why a single arrow was just killing all of these hardy centaurs. And he picked up the arrow, dropped it, it impaled his foot, and he instantly died. But so Chiron ended up getting hit with one of these arrows. But Chiron was immortal, so he didn't die. He was just severely wounded, and he couldn't cure that poison at all. Actually, it might have been the Nemean lion. I think it was the Nemean lion. No, he used the arrows on the Nemean lion because the hide of the Nemean lion was impenetrable. The only thing that could kill the lion was the poison from the Hydra. Right? So that's the story of Chiron. He's an immortal that got poisoned by this incurable venom, and according to some different mythos, he later traded his immortality and his place with Prometheus, and then apparently that helped Hercules get the golden apples of the Hesperides when Hercules swapped places with Atlas. So, oh my God, no pun intended. Casey, puns and riddles, I love it. Um, but yeah, that's the whole story. He's an immortal who got poisoned by this incurable poison, and it kind of sort of takes the place in the birth chart of, it's like that area where you give really, really, really solid advice, you give really good advice, but you don't follow it yourself. Right? It's kind of sort of like when you know the answers, but it's like your answers work better for other people than they do for you, typically. I mean, my Chiron is in Leo. And so with my Chiron being in Leo, it's like I shunned the limelight for a long time. I didn't want to be too outwardly expressive. I didn't want to be at the forefront of anything. I'd rather be sort of like in the background. Didn't really want any attention at all. And I wouldn't really do anything. It's like I basically played small all my life. And I would always encourage other people to be themselves. And like Leo is also a space of creativity. and I can be fairly creative, but I don't necessarily, or I didn't always see what I didn't see in my own work what other people would see in my work. And so I wouldn't see it as like as good as other people were like saying that it was, right? So it's in the fifth house, the house of creativity, the Leo house. Ooh. Oh snap, who is this? Oh snap, I'm gonna have to check that out. I'm gonna actually make sure I'm pretty sure it's in my fifth house. Because I have Gemini on my. No, I have Cancer on the 3 and 4. So Leo cusping the fifth house. But let me make sure. I'm like 99% certain it's in my fifth house. Chiron, fifth house. Yep. It's in my fifth house. Oh no, I would rather be an actor. Well, we'll see. I mean, old me would rather be a viewer of the movie than to be in the movie at all. Because even the director has a place in the credits, and we have certain like really famous directors, right? Like Spielberg, and are they producers? Girl, I don't even know, Casey. Yours is in the 10th, and you have a stellium in the 10th. But it seems like I mean, what else could the 10th house be besides career? The 10th house it's the Capricorn house. It's a house ruled by Saturn. It's very much so about integrity, and it's about career. It's about the foundation of who we are. And I guess the 10th house could be, it's almost about self-worth, but it's like, yeah, it's almost like self-worth. Because it's like, if you were the business, if you were the company that you build from the ground up, that you invest time and energy and resources into, that you sort of like connect with other people to strengthen, then it's like all of that stuff that we do within our own personal foundation. And so I guess it could be like self-worth, self-esteem, and maybe settling in some ways and stuff like that. But your legacy, how you're seen, work, work, work. Yeah. Like Capricorn is legacy, and it is. I feel like it's so interesting because it is like your reputation, but I feel like Aquarius or the 11th house, like they both kind of sort of have that how you're seen type of energy. But I guess the 11th house is more so like how you project yourself socially because it's opposite the house of Leo. Whereas like the 10th house is more just like naturally, organically, like how you're seen. But like I feel like the root of a lot of that stuff is like self worth, self image, and self esteem. Because then it's like, if you think about legacy and if you think about career, those are things that last a long time. So the 10th house can ask questions of like, what are you willing to put up with for that long of a duration of time? And it's like, what is your legacy built upon? What is the foundation of your legacy? If you take it a little deeper, maybe not. Nothing in the 11th. I have my son in the 11th house. And Shonda Rhimes, astrology coach, told me that people with sun in the 11th house can be people pleasers. And I said, "Oh my gosh," because my Chiron in Leo also kind of makes me a little bit averse to confrontation. Right? I don't necessarily like it. And my Mars is in Cancer. And when I was younger, I had like trouble controlling my temper. It's like once the pot blew off of the kettle, then it was really hard to put it back on because you would have to wait a really, 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 really long time for the pot. Once the lid was off of the pot, or the lid was off of the kettle, sorry. Once you blow the lid off, it's like both the lid and the pot are too hot to touch. So it's like you kind of just sort of let it burn a hole into the ground for several hours, and then eventually it'll be cool. So that kind of played into it for me. My Mercury is in Pisces in the 12th house. Retrograde, so it's lost. My Mercury is in dreams, it's in the clouds. It's yeah. My Mercury is in Pisces in the 12th house. So but the 12th house is good for like, the collective subconscious and stuff like that, and like those deeper, and maybe that I can kind of sort of attribute the way that I think and my connection that I've always had to my Mercury being in Pisces in the 12th house. But again, it is retrograde, so wasn't necessarily always the best at communicating effectively or being able to find the words without. That's why I use metaphor so much, because it's easier for me to like give you the metaphor that is the whole story to communicate the point rather than just try to find the words. Yeah, and my north node is in the 8th house in Sagittarius. So yep. So next we have the 3 of Cups, followed by some more cups. Is this the 5 of Cups? Look, we had the 3 of Cups on this stack, the 5 of Cups on this stack, and then the 8 of Cups fell on the floor. Oh, goodness. I do want to see what these cards are, though. I'm interested in these. Yeah. Thank you, Casey. I've actually found it rather helpful. And not only, like, it also helps me. Well, that is communication. Teaching is communication. It helps me, like, sometimes it makes it a lot easier to make things make sense for other people, especially if I already know how their brain works, more or less. Then it's like, oh, I can craft you the perfect little story to make this make sense to you, right? And that's one thing that I kind of sort of did a little bit here and there growing up. Not too much, but Oh, death. Speaking of Scorpio in the 8th house. Why'd it fall on the floor like that? Death, the 3 of Pentacles, the 6 of Swords, and the Pillar. The Pillar is Empress energy. So Death, the 3 of Pentacles, the 6 of Swords, and the Empress. The card of Death in this deck is so interesting because it's like these two serpents are in so much competition that they tie themselves up, knot themselves up among each other, and neither one of them gets the prize at the top. Honestly, the energy of this death card, it speaks more to decay for me. Because if that rose at the top is food, both of these snakes are going to slowly starve to death. Honestly, they might get to the point where they try to eat each other. And it's about a need to untangle and to uncomplicate a lot of things. Because the only way to, and like they're both so close. If they could just loosen themselves up a little bit, they'd have it. And then we have the 3 of Pentacles and the 6 of Swords, which could speak to. The 3 of Pentacles is interesting because we got the 3 of Diamonds earlier. Let's see. Transformation shed the skin. See, but it's like these snakes are so tied up though But if they started molting and shedding skin, it would give them even less room. Because then, like, where would all the dead, crunchy skin go? Maybe they would shed the skin and then eat the dead, crunchy skin. It probably has absolutely no nutritional value. But hey, you might get something out of it. If you eat enough of it, maybe it'll make your belly feel full. But it's like there's not enough room for any kind of transformation in here, in this card in particular. But I do love it, typically. Um, and the Three of Pentacles and the Six of Swords, like the Three of Diamonds came out earlier, and again that was about physical 3D limitations that are the result of something else. Something else, right? And so maybe stress. And with the Death card, okay, so with the Death card, these are things that we see value in that don't actually bring us any value. They don't actually get us any closer to where we actually want to be. And if we go back to the Nemean Lion, and if we go back to the thing I said about vulnerability earlier, it's like if you can't be vulnerable, the heart healing that you get, the emotional clarity that you get will probably be very little. You may get some trickles of that water. That water may trickle, but without vulnerability, it's like if you were dying of thirst and you got drop after drop after drop of water, would you ever reach the point where you're not thirsty? And like in this deck, the swords. Oh, we have a rose. We have a rose. Y'all see it? The rose. There's a rose going out the top. But we see the jaw. And so the way out of whatever the Six of Swords situation is communication. It's like there's a conversation that needs to be had that really shifts things enough to the point where we can untangle, unwind a little bit. And if we come into this cooperation energy with the Three of Pentacles instead of this seemingly competitive energy, then it's like everyone can win. As long as we're working against each other, no one wins. Because you got to sail away from all of that to become this Empress right here. So, to become this pillar. And the pillar is about support and it's about strength. And whatever we were using as a system of support in the past, it wasn't working. That's some root chakra healing that needs to be done. Probably some heart chakra, some solar, sacral, solar plexus, sacral, throat, third eye, crown, earth star, soul star, all of them. That's because, right, if the snake represents Kundalini energy, which needs all of the chakras to be open for it to freely flow, and if it's being tied up somewhere, that's imbalance in the chakra system. Dried and crunchy skin, right? No problem, Casey. It is fun. I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying this, like, it's a little bit lower key, but I feel like I can still say the things that I need to say without being so fiery. Without being so fiery. That's interesting. Jormungandr. What is this? Oh, look. Oh, the Nine of Swords came out. In the Six of Swords, we see the bottom jaw. In the Nine of Swords, we see the rest of the skull. There's 3 swords piercing the crown. 3 swords piercing each eye. Yeah, that's definitely... It's like... and this is something I say all of the time. Each chakra center affects the other chakra centers, right? Let's say that I use this example all the time. Let's use it. Well, I use that one all the time. The heart is the easiest one to use, right? Let's say that you're trying to make moves in your own personal life, and so you focus on your solar plexus chakra and your sacral chakra. Sacral for creativity, solar plexus for pushing it out there, but you don't do anything on your throat, right? Then it's like automatically you're encountering this barrier where you can't communicate your vision to other people. And it's almost that energy of I can show you better than I can tell you. But if you're looking for money, okay, well, let's let's dial that back. There are some people that need to be convinced with words, right? Depending on what you're doing, if someone needs to understand your process and you can't communicate that, then it lessens your impact. The throat chakra, we kind of sort of give it a lot of credit for speaking, but it's about navigating authentically, and it's kind of sort of intimately tied to the solar plexus in that way, as the one before and the ones before and after the heart, right? And then we have the sacral that's connected to the third eye, because it's like, let's say that you're someone who has no passion in life and you're so ultimately uninspired that you can't see the beauty or the magic in anything, right? It's like, how does one who's never known beauty, it's like being colorblind and going out into the world and trying to separate the reds and greens and yellows and browns and blues and purples from each other with no prior experience. That's like, okay, when everyone else says red, they go for this shade. And when they say green, they go for the other shade. Right? Because I worked with someone who was colorblind, and he was responsible for putting up the backgrounds on the bulletin boards that we did. And he was like, "Oh yeah, make the colorblind guy put up the backgrounds because we had different colors for different floors in the building." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot that you were colorblind." But he was able to figure it out, especially because there were boards that we already put up there. Right? There's something that you have for comparison, and then the root is connected to the crown. Right? It's like you can receive all of this information in your crown, but if you can't ground it, then it flows through you like water, or through like it flows through you like ether. Because at least water you can keep in the body for a minute. Ether just, it's like food through a ghost. How did I get so smart? I I don't know, Casey. Life experience, the way my mind works, the intuitive connection that I just have, opening myself up to experiencing more and more of me. And like I said, I learned through metaphors. Well, wait, you may not have been here for that. With my Pisces placements, especially my Mercury in Pisces and my third house in Cancer, I guess. Um, it's like I learn through metaphor. And so it makes it easier for me to look at this if I can compare it to that. And it's these similarities that make it's just easier for me. And also, it's like, I'll say it's luck. I'll say it's fortune, because sometimes I'll like literally, it's been the case that I will literally look something up a few days to a few weeks before someone comes and asks me a question. And then I have the answer because I just researched it. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, Patrick, you're so smart." I was like, "I literally just researched this like right before you asked me. I promise I'm not that smart." But anyway, yeah, Casey, I don't know. It's my humongous 12th house and my Pisces sign, and it's the culmination of me. Thank you, Casey. It's always been, the connection is my natural state, honestly. I've always been like this, and I've always been disconnected. Like, even my mom would say that I've always been disconnected, and she doesn't approve of the tarot necessarily, or she didn't at first. And I told her about it, and she was like, "Well, she was like, you've always been like that, and you've never needed cards to do that. There were times when you were like little and you would say something to me, and you would speak so directly to the situation that I was going through, to me and to other people. Like, you would just know things, and you never needed cards before. You don't need cards now. I was like, yeah, I know I don't need cards, but honestly, the cards for me are like a little barrier and a little boundary, because I ain't necessarily trying to be in people energy raw. I'm like, no, I'll stick to the cards and I'll use these as a tool. Thank you. But I do need to work on that other connective piece, because I've already had, like, I already know some of the things that that space is capable of, and to really step into it, I need to start to utilize those gifts and abilities. Um, but again, it's like, I don't know. I'd rather be tapping into an energy that I know is all right before I just step into something and then I'm like, oh my gosh, like therapy. Okay. Thanks, Casey. I appreciate it. And I did. And like, I feel like another reason why I have the approach to a lot of things that I have is I meditated a lot before I got into the chakras and before I got into other stuff. I was already meditating. And like I said, I knew what my restrictions were, and so I knew what to tackle. And whenever I was afraid of something or uncomfortable, that's the next thing I tackled, right? And so I knew that my root was effed up because of um, the situation that I was born into. And because I didn't really see a future for myself, then my third eye was effed up. And the way that I perceived the world was effed up. I wasn't acting authentically at all, so my throat was effed up. My heart was effed up because I didn't want to be used and utilized by people. I had iron tight walls of defense. My solar plexus was effed up because I didn't do anything. And then my sacral was okay, but I didn't, like, with my Chiron and Leo, with me not seeing the value and the strength of my own creativity, it was also kind of weak. And so it's like I start to do all of this self work, and then I learn about the chakras, and I took a meditation class at the same time. Um, the meditation class, I mean, that's what taught me about, like, the left channel, the right channel, the middle channel, about the Kundalini energy, how it rises throughout all of the centers. And if your chakras are open, your internal, you can actually feel your Kundalini energy, because what it'll do is it'll rise from the sacral to the crown, and it'll actually come out of the crown where you can like feel it. And I was already feeling that energy when I was in my meditation heavy space. And then someone later was like, "Oh yeah, that's your Kundalini energy." I was like, "What?" He was like, "Yeah." So, like, I am studied, but also I like I said, I fill in the gaps, and I create all these metaphors and stuff like that too, you know. But thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's like I knew what was going on in my personal life, and I consciously chose to make the decisions that I made when I was a kid. I was like, well, this is happening and that's happening, and I'm afraid of this and I'm afraid of that, and this is what happens and that's what happens. So I'm going to decide to run away from all of that and just self isolate and try to be the best little robot I can be. And because, like, I consciously made those decisions, and it's like, I don't know. I'm just in tune with myself and with spirit. It's a facet of who I am as a person. But thank you, Casey. I feel like there would have been a point where I wouldn't even be able to accept compliments. I am amazing. Honestly, low key, having that healed Chiron and Leo is just like, it completely changes the game for me. It completely changes the whole game for me. Because, like, It, and like with me operating from this more authentic healed space and with me following my purpose, when I bring my North Node and my Chiron online, my Venus is already there. So it just activates this Grand Fire trine that I already have. And the Grand Fire trine it's the tightest trine that I have in my chart. It's all between like 17 and 19 degrees. So, yeah. But here, it's like we saw the bottom jaw and the Six of Swords, and then here's the top of the skull. I mean, and there we have all of these threes, right? 333. Threes are catalytic numbers. And again, it's bringing to mind the Iron Hand I Ching, where it's like you're being oppressed by something that is not oppressive. It's all in the mind. Devil energy is there for us to grow beyond and to evolve past. It's not for us to get stuck and ensnared in those traps. And I think that's what the three is about. The three is a catalyst. It's something that inspires change in something else, even though it in and of itself is not changed. Right? If we're waiting for our environment, if we're waiting for the outside to change before we start making internal changes, we're kind of sort of doing it the wrong way. Because everything outside of you, it's like it's bringing so many things to mind. It's like if the environment is bigger than the external, it's a lot easier for the environment to affect the internal, not the external, sorry. If the external is greater than the internal, it's easier for the external to affect the internal than it is for the internal to affect the external, right? Like, let's say you have a pot of boiling water on the stove. What's going to be hottest is the water inside the pot on the stove. You step away from the stove, you still feel that heat. You go to the back of the house, you can't even tell that the stove is on. If your house is large enough and if it's well ventilated enough, right? I mean, it all, I don't know, it makes sense. Decision is not action, exactly. What's my purpose? My purpose isn't necessarily something that I found out, honestly. To me, purpose has been a journey, and I've just been following the journey. And as I follow the journey, I pick up on what I'm uncomfortable with. And that's related to my purpose. And that's honestly how I found it. And it's something that continues to evolve, and it's something that continues to change as I continue to evolve. But yeah, so like when I in the meditation class, he mentioned a few weeks, like I only missed this is so sad. I had better attendance in the meditation class than I did in my actual classes. And one of my professors was one of the leaders for the meditation class. That's how I found out about the meditation class, because on the first day of class, the professor said, "Hey, we also do these Sahaja Yoga meditation classes every Wednesday at 6:30." So I saw him in the meditation class more than I saw him in actual class. um But when we were in meditation class, like in meditation class, I could call him by his first name and everything, right? It was like two completely different environments. But I was just like, oof. Um, but a few weeks in, he was talking about how we can use our energy, or how we can direct energy to clear other people's energy, right? And of course, I was extremely interested in that, because who wouldn't be? And so I was like, "So you're saying that we can clear other people's energy? Like, how do we do that?" And he looked at me and he laughed and he was like, "You could already do that. All you have to do is believe that you can." And I said, "What? Like, you don't even know me." Maybe he could feel my Kundalini energy just overflowing by that point. Um, and so then a few weeks after that, I asked him if he would ever talk about it, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll talk about it in the next class." And like 2 to 3 classes after that is when he actually talked about it. And we started with a workshop, right? So the people who had done a workshop before would work on the people who hadn't done a workshop. So I got worked on, and I could feel it in my third eye so heavy that I thought my head was going to explode. Like literally, the pressure built up in the third eye and in the crown to the part where I thought my head was going to explode. Not literally explode, but the pressure was extremely uncomfortable. And then after it was done, it was my professor's younger brother, and he was so cute. I was like, ooh, hi. um, and like he was spiritual. That was like cute, check. Spiritual, check. Like job, check. You're traveling, check. I see nothing wrong. Um, hold up. Yeah. And you had a dream last night about missing classes, girl. Casey, that's like literally my whole educational career. Missing classes. I actually had perfect attendance in 4 out of 5 classes one semester. And I only like that class I overslept one day because I was using a double bell alarm clock at that point, I think, and I didn't change the time after the time rolled back or something like that. Or like my phone didn't automatically change for some reason. And so I overslept that one day. That was the closest to perfect attendance I've ever had, and I was so proud of myself that semester. But I was talking about the crown, and he was like, "Yeah, it was really the third eye in the crown." He was like, "Yeah, it was really something up there." But when he was doing it, I just knew to like release, and that area energetically is so interesting because it sort of, especially the crown, it houses the mind. And there was this practice that I got obsessed with my freshman or sophomore year of college because I lived on the dorms and everything. I lived in the dorms and everything was in walking distance. And I would get bored walking to class. And so I would play mind games. And so, one of the first things I did was I came up with a naming system for trees in the autumn whenever they begin to change colors. And the naming system was based on the color of the leaves and how the branches were formed. I created a 4D map of campus where the fourth dimension was time because a lot of stuff changed on campus. They were constantly doing construction. I played with perspective where I tried to see myself in the world from a different point of view. And I would just like get into this habit of like expanding my mind. Like if you could try to envelop the whole world with your mind and then move to the solar system and then move to like the galaxy and then move to the universe, it's like the mind is so amazing. And like that's what really separates the mind from the brain because the brain is fixed in place, but the mind can wander anywhere, any when, everywhere, every when. I was just like, oh my gosh. So I expanded my mind a little bit when he was doing it, and it made it easier for things to clear out. And it reduced the pressure. So, I mean, you never miss class, ever. No, you've never taken French. That's so interesting. French is a language that's been popping up in my dreams a little bit. And I know one of the people who I watch now, he's in France right now. But even before he went to France, French popped up in one of my dreams. And it was this girl speaking French. And I was like, oh, sorry, like, no habla español. And she was like, she got mad. I was like, oh, you're speaking French. Sorry, I don't speak French either, obviously. And she was like, she was a little bit less upset. But I mean, I've had classes with absolutely abysmal attendance, and I would show up to the final exam. I've skipped final exams. Depression wasn't pretty, and that's why part of the reason why it took me so long to finish my degree. Because I wasn't the best student. And homework is the bane of everything that I enjoy about education. Exams, I don't mind. Quizzes, I don't mind. Homework, I absolutely do not like. especially if I already know how to do it, then it's just boring. Like, I enjoy figuring things out, so I like that, but besides that, I'm just like, I'm not interested. It's like a video game that you've already beat before. Oh, wait. There we go. There we go. Summa cum laude and a workaholic. Oh, so you're on the other side of that. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Intellectually, I could have been that, but motivationally, absolutely not. Okay, so you have like a superpowered 10th house. Gotcha. That's why I was like, typically, every time I've heard someone talk about a stellium, it seems like an area that they like struggle in. But KC, you seem pretty like on it. But also, I guess, yeah. I mean, so hey, work that. I wish I had a superpowered house stellium. Is this the Ten of Wands? It is the Ten of Wands. The Ten of Wands is the card that came out. Sometimes, oh, I'm like, I forgot to go to OBS. I'm like, whoa, what's happening? Sometimes it's like we want to do, it's like too many things to do, not enough hours in the day. We need to hone in on like one thing and then allow that to lead to other things. And that is the question, that's the answer to the question of how I found my purpose. By kind of sort of approaching it one thing at a time and allowing it to unfold rather than trying to sort of get all of it at once. That's okay. So long story, a little less long. We had the workshops, and then a few weeks after the workshop is when he told us how to balance other people's energies. And I went over, and so I was going with someone who's a little shy. And as soon as he was like, hey, no, because first we did it before. He had to miss that week because every other week he had another engagement. And so I told him about the first time I balanced someone else's energy. I was like, oh my gosh, it was so cool. And then he was like, oh, I wonder if we're going to do that again. Because he likes his personal space and he doesn't want anyone else anywhere near him. And so it was kind of going that way. And he was like, oh, and he just got up and left. I was like, oh, I knew that was going to happen. But after the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, I know how to balance someone's energy now. And honestly, when I did it, he was just like, so in Sahaja Yoga, it's you put your hands up, right? And in Sahaja Yoga, we talk about the left channel, the right channel, and then the center channel. The left channel is the feminine channel. It is hot, and it is more closely associated with emotions, desires in the past. The right channel is masculine, it is cool, and it is associated with logic and the future. And then the middle channel is where the Kundalini energy lives. That is kind of sort of that in between space of those two. Right? And so he's like, if your left channel is overly active. Oh my gosh. That's the answer to my question. That's the answer. Girl, I've been so confused and I didn't even know why, and I've literally had the answer in my back pocket this whole time. Because if the left channel is overactive, it gets hot. And to balance out an overactive left channel, you cool it down with ice. Or to activate an underactive left channel, you can use the heat from a candle, right? And then on the right channel, if it's overactive, it gets cold, right? And to bring that into balance, then you can use the heat. Or like if it's overactive, then you use the heat to like warm it up because it gets too cool. If it's underactive, then one of the things, so like when I do my foot soaking meditations, you use cold water in the foot soaking meditation to balance out the right channel, and then you typically meditate on a candle to balance out the left channel, but also to clear out the third eye because light is the element that clears the third eye. A whole bunch of stuff. I did take the meditation class, right? So this part I didn't figure out myself. And one of the things that I loved about the meditation class was that it was not regurgitated information from the internet. Because I was like, I could get into chakras off of the internet, but I don't want information that's been passed from mouth to mouth to mouth to mouth to mouth to mouth. Like, I like to have a good time, but for me personally, that's a little bit too much fun. You know, that's a little too much fun. It's crossed a few too many mouths for me. I'd rather be as close to the source as possible, and I was able to do that through this Sahaja Yoga meditation class. It was amazing. It was so amazing. It was wonderful. What's the question? It's been an overactive. I've been getting really, really, really hot lately. Like, I've been heating up, and it's not hot. It's actually fairly cool in my room, which is interesting because usually it's burning up in my room. But I'm like internally warm, but externally cool. And it's an overactive feminine channel, which is basically I'm not doing enough in the real world. Right? And I've talked about it before. I do have a lot of desire. I do have a lot of things that I want to be passionate and fired up about, but I'm not able to engage with any of that. So all of that energy is just kind of sort of like building up in my system. And I'm feeling pretty warm now, actually. And so I'll probably do more foot soaking meditations because that'll help cool it down as well, right? It balances the masculine channel, but it also helps to cool down the feminine channel, right? That was the answer to the question. 333. Why aren't you taking action? It was a learning phase, Casey, and I wasn't I wasn't in a position to. It's been a learning phase. And it's been a healing phase and a growing phase, and there were other things that I kind of sort of needed to do. Also, I'm still finishing the schoolwork, and there are like real life things that I want to do that aren't this schoolwork. There are places that I want to go. Procrastination, Casey. Long story short, I've been procrastinating. I can come up with a million excuses. I've been procrastinating. Leap, my frog. Wow! Decision is not in action. I have been like. Another reason why I haven't been acting though is because like it's like every time I get an opportunity, honestly, it feels like the time hasn't been right. The opportunities have been amazing, but they haven't felt right. And there were some things, or are some things within myself that I need to get clear on. Before I leap into something, I need to have a little bit more of a direction than just like, I want to do anything. That is not what I am currently doing. I want to be anywhere. That is not where I currently am. Because anything and anywhere are too open. And I do want to make sure I'm actually progressing towards something that I would want. I don't want to just. And also, I've been knowing that something in my life, in my personal life, would happen to the point where it would change the course of direction. It would change my course of, is that it? Course of direction? Course of direction, those are literally the same thing. My course of action, my plan. It would change the course, okay, that I'm on. And I knew so strongly that my direction would change. It didn't make sense to me to fully leap into something and then have to backtrack or try to redirect after I had leapt. And in the meantime, in between time, I've been growing and coming into more of who I am. And it hasn't made sense yet. It hasn't yet been revealed to me. That's why. So partially procrastination, partially timing. I just knew that the timing wasn't right. And something about September 1 is like, it's time now. The time is now to begin acting. And so I've been moving on and doing some things. here. How long have I been live? Oof, almost 3 hours. I've been moving on and doing some things, and especially here within the past few days, it's like the picture is finally starting to come into completion. And it's not about having a complete picture, it's about that moment when you know it's time to act. It goes back to the Kestrel Hawk. And the Kestrel Hawk, the first day, it was the peregrine falcon, and the peregrine falcon is all about speed. It's the fastest animal on the planet. It has a diving speed of like 180 something miles per hour. But the Kestrel Hawk was the message the next day. And the Kestrel Hawk is about accuracy of movement, it's about precision, and it's about acting at the right time. And part of it was procrastination, but another part of it just wasn't the right time. But it feels like the time is now. For me personally, the time is now. And so that's why I'm starting to do everything that I'm doing. Your Leo rising completely supports me to take action. My Taurus rising completely negates your Leo rising by encouraging me to continue to graze in the grass. I'm just playing. It is time for it's like honestly the Taurus in me has been ready to charge. The Taurus in me has been ready to charge. My Venus in Aries is activated. My Mars got activated in like June or July. Like June. My Mars got activated in June. My Venus got activated back in January. And it's like all of these things that have been kind of dormant within me are starting to come online. You know? And the bull is ready to charge, and then it's like I can't go nowhere, and then I honestly have thrown like little mini temper tantrums because I'll get impatient, and then I come back to it and I pick it back up. The Ten of Wands is still on the table. I chuck some wands because I'm like, F this, I'm ready to move. And then, I take a moment to breathe and I pick them back up and I keep moving. But I mean, for me personally, I've chosen to Ten of Wands my own journey for a fair amount of time because it's what I wanted in that moment. And because I chose the Ten of Wands my journey more consciously and intentionally, it opened me up to a slew of other lessons. Right. And now I've gotten to the point now where I can't Ten of Wands anymore. So now that the extra wands are dropped, I'm ready to like take off. But not only am I ready, I am also whole enough to do so. So that's why, Casey, long story short, who needs that many wands? You never know. Like 10 of Wands, that's enough. You could set up a tent, you could set up a campfire, and you can sharpen one into a spear for catching fish. With 10 wands and a piece of cloth, some flint, and some tinder, you could survive in the woods. And it's been about preparing to thrive, right? And I've been seeing like the rods card, and even on my other channel, when I've seen the rods, it's like it's almost like the energy of a tortoise or a hermit crab, where you have your home on your back. And it's like this Ten of Wands, it's different than like being overburdened by other people's things. It's almost like training. It's like strength training and lifting weights. That's what it's like. It's like lifting weights to make yourself even stronger. That's what it is. Yeah, yeah. Right. And it was about not being so impatient that I didn't trust in divine timing and not making a larger mess by not doing things. But for me, I call it Ten of Wandsing because I intentionally chose to take it slower and to be more in the moment instead of just trying to get out of it. So that's what I mean. Yeah. Yep, yep. And so back to the original question of purpose. After that first time I balanced someone else's energy, and part of me instinctively knew how to do it. Part of me knows that healing is in my toolkit, but the Chiron and Leo in the fifth house, or Chiron and Leo in me, didn't want to really be a healer. I was like, I'm gonna pull cards for people at the most, and that's it. Like I can't be healer. I can, but I don't want to. I don't want to be known. I don't want to work with anybody. I don't want to do that. And I remember talking to one of my good friends after the class. I was like, oh my God. Because first I was like, oh my gosh, I learned how to balance someone's energy. That's like so cool. And then I was like, oh crap. Spirit is about to have me out here calling myself a healer, aren't they? Spirit is about to have me out here trying to balance people's energy. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I thought we had an understanding that cards would be all that I do. And that uncomfortability for me was unlocking that as a potential path on the collection of paths that is my purpose. And whenever I'm met with that level of uncomfortability, I know I'm onto something. And so I got over it and I released it, right? That was in Hermit Week, right? And on Hermit Week, I started coming live more and I started reading for people more. I started creating spreads and doing those. I think you got one of them during Hermit Week, Casey. Um, and that's how I knew that it was part of the purpose. And I also talked to that same friend about like reading for people. I was like, I think I'm being pushed into the space where I'm going to start reading for other people, and I don't like it because I'm not necessarily trying to like do anything, right? And I say that my Chiron and Leo is primarily healed, but I'm still not trying to build my channel. So it's like I'm comfortable in this small space. Honestly, like if I had to grow, I would. Like getting comfortable being uncomfortable, yeah. Because it's within the realm of uncomfort that all of the growth lies, you know? So that and reading to people, me using my name on the internet instead of just being Rio, um it was all a it was all part of the journey for me, and it's building my purpose. And also there were some external things. It's like I have this vision of the future that has lots of missing puzzle pieces. And the more pieces I get, the more complete that picture gets. Now, the picture itself isn't fixed, but that's another thing. For me personally, when it comes to my purpose, I've never really been the type of person who needed to nail it down, primarily because a lot of it involved stuff that I was uncomfortable with. So it made it easier to not need to know. Um, but yeah, I allow it, like I allow a lot of things to continue to evolve and change as I grow. Right? So, yeah. Yep. All right. Do you want a few cards, Casey? Since you've been so graciously here with me this whole time, I could pull you one of the Diceologies and then pull. I was going to pull before and after, but we can do some randoms. If you want, if you would like, before I take off, because I do actually need to start doing stuff. And then it's like I keep getting hit with these roadblocks, and the roadblocks, honestly, they're like, okay, how bad do you want it? I'm like, oh my gosh, y'all really ain't gonna make this easy on me, are you? And it's like it's not about being easy right now, right? Sometimes I wish I was a little easier, honestly. But then I don't, because I'm like, yeah, that's a whole bunch of stuff I ain't even trying to get into. Sure. You've been having a great time. Thank you. It was a lot of fun. And I'm glad that, and that's another thing. When I was talking to my friend, especially by the time that happened, I had seen enough of drama on YouTube to know that I wasn't necessarily trying to be involved. And I also know that, like, where I am and where I'm going, I'm not necessarily for, like, the beginner. And I'm not really interested in keeping things surface level. And I'm not interested in repeating the same patterns over and over and over again. And so I was talking to her, and, like, that was primarily why I didn't want to read for people in public. But she was like, like, you could just find your audience and you can find who you read for. And I was like, okay, cool. And especially now, with as harsh as I can be, especially on the other channel sometimes, it's like, I'm not for a beginner, right? It's like, come in expecting a certain exposure to some stuff. But it's not that I couldn't do it, it's just not my interest area. I leave that to people who are all about that, right? And I know some people who don't mind doing that. But I don't know. I don't really have the patience for it. I got a lot of Saturn in my chart too. Venus and Saturn. I got two. So I got a Taurus moon and rising. My Jupiter is in Libra. That's my. There we go. Well, okay. Let me put these down. I'm just shuffling these up right now because I don't want to get me into you. But then I have two placements in Capricorn, and my Saturn is in Aquarius. So I got Venus and Saturn strong in my chart. So some of your thought process. Oof. Like, I mean, I already told you how I feel about talking to Gemini's, KC, so I would love that. I don't mind talking to Sagittariuses, but sometimes they just get a little too fixed for me. Sometimes, or a little too inflexible. I feel like Pisces is like Sagittarius in a lot of ways, but it's super flexible and bendy. Sagittarius is as straight as that arrow sometimes. And it reaches amazing heights, just like that arrow, but it can be a little too rigid for me sometimes. But I got a few, like, Sagittarius best friends. My one Sagittarius best friend, if I didn't know that she was a Sagittarius, I don't even think I would think she's a Sagittarius. Part of me would, though. Honestly, I would, because she's very Sagittarius. All right. Anyway, for KC. All right, for KC. Through the cards. Ooh, let me take this off of my head real quick. Okay. Ooh, now my head is getting cooler. I feel like there's less pressure on the crown area. That's amazing. We'll take it. Why not? Ooh, the 10 of diamonds. Oh, snap. Okay, Casey. That's interesting. That's. I'm like, ooh, all right, wow. Well, okay. Let's get a few clarifiers for this. Like 2 or 3 would be perfect. Like 2 or 3 clarifiers would be perfect. Because I'm not going to do... I will do that thing. I'll do the thing. Okay, so I'm going to do the thing where I go looking around the 10 of Pentacles for Casey for the 10 of Diamonds. All right. Bottom of the deck is the 6 of Cups, the Sovereign of Wands, and the 9 of Cups. Oh, snap! I feel like you always have such good energy, though, Casey. I'm always like, oh my gosh, this is interesting. I'll read it in a second, Casey. Self talk. Things are easy for me to accomplish. I love that. Six of Cups is it's traditionally more Casey, it's time. The Six of Cups is traditionally like soulmatey or nostalgic childhood, something like that. It is a little bit for me. It's becoming inner child healing and healing the root and stuff like that. And there are like roses. There is this stopwatch. That's why I said it's time. There are a few cards that have that like stopwatch up there. Well, because I guess a clock could also be talking about the past, but I don't think this one is. It looks like it feels like you've put time and energy into doing something, into doing lots of healing. And then we have the Sovereign of Wands, which is that Queen of Wands energy, which is about attracting to you what you want because you've done all of this healing, right? And then what you're attracting to you is the Nine of Cups, your wishes and desires. Now, this is at the bottom of the deck, so we haven't actually clarified, but that's sort of like the energy that is most prevalent. It's about getting you to the position where you know that you're worthy of what you want, where you're doing that healing, doing that preparation, and you're being rewarded for it. It feels like the energy of rewards, honestly. What are we looking for? The Ten of Pentacles. Okay. Oh, who's that? Ten of Coins. What? Oh. Okay. Oh, I thought it would have been the Lovers, but the Lovers is right before that. Man, it was almost the Lovers. This is interesting. Okay. This is interesting. All right. Before I read that, so the Eight of Swords and the Lovers are sitting. The Eight of Swords and the Lovers is sitting outside of this window. I am going to look up the Lenormand correspondence really quick for the Ten of Diamonds because I'm interested. I can't believe it's been like 3 hours, but it's been so fun. I feel like the time has flown. Time flies. Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. Why did this? Okay. Oh, I gotta go to the restroom now. All that water is starting to hit. So the Ten of Diamonds. Ten of Diamonds is. Oh, I went way past it. Ten of Diamonds is the book. Secrets, knowledge, education, information, research, studies, neutral, and future. It's the book. It's the Reading Rainbow. Take a look in the book. Oh, hold up. Let me read this again. Okay. So remember what I was saying about the 10th house, 10th house, Capricorn, 10 of diamonds, money house. It can kind of sort of sometimes be related to the area of self-worth and what we allow our legacy to be. Now with the 6 of cups, the 6 of cups, what was this? The Queen of Wands, 6 of Cups, Sovereign of Wands, and the 9 of Cups. I feel like that's doing that work of you coming to see exactly how amazing you are and what you deserve. And it seems like it has been, or will be, or is, because it could be timeless, right? You'll know when it hits for you, if it resonates for you. It's like it's definitely about that journey. And it's about healing and reconciling the things that we've held on to for so long that actually weren't really serving, because that opens us up to getting exactly what it is that we want. And with the 10 of diamonds being the book, there is this energy of kind of sort of analyzing your story and editing your story and rewriting your story if necessary. Now, the card says, a blistering heat and freezing cold that lies at the heart of creation. So that, I mean, talking about the heat and the cold, that could be some Kundalini type stuff. The heart of creation being like the sacral, but also like a more, a bigger sacral. The truth of the heart made plain and beginnings. Now, the truth of the heart made plain is interesting because the Lovers and the Eight of Swords is outside of this. And there is that energy of you beginning to know what it is that you're worth. Or reassembling, rewriting your story. Rewriting your story. And then around the 10 of coins, and this is the 10 of coins in this deck, we see it all raining down from above. Let's see what the coins have. So the top coin has the diamond, which is all about abundance. There's a coin of wisdom in the tooth, a coin of community in the roots, a coin of love in the rose, a coin of boundaries and restrictions in the thorns, a coin of movement with the wings, a coin of not experience, of like support with the bone, and then a coin of new beginnings with the seed. So overall, like, this is an amazing energy. And there is a wand with a nail on it under everything. And I'm going to say that the nail, I've never known what the nail is, but the nail on the wand, the nail is grounding everything. And the Sovereign of Wands, Queen of Wands, was at the bottom of the deck. Here's the wand that calls for everything to be released. For everything to be released. And then outside of that is Temperance with another wand. Well, no, it's a cup. It's not a wand here, it's a cup that's on fire. Temperance and the Five of Cups. Oh, I don't know Ariana Grande like that, honestly. But what's that one song when, I don't know. It's like No Tears Left to Cry or something like that. Hands jumped out, ready to receive. Exactly. So the Five of Cups and Temperance. This Temperance card is This Temperance card is energy. This Temperance card is interesting because it has fire coming out of the cup. Right. So there is, and then we do have blistering heat and the freezing cold. There is this place at the heart of creation where masculine and feminine meet. It's the energy of an egg, of limitless and boundless potential, but you're going to have to tend to it. And I think that's, so ultimately, overall, this feels like you being on the cusp of major breakthroughs and receiving so much of like the beginning of all beginnings. But with Temperance and the Five of Cups, it's like there's this energy of you needing to nurture it. And again, if it is an egg, here's the wand. And in Temperance, the fire keeps the egg warm, and the cup is, that's your emotional tie to what it is that you're creating for yourself. So it sounds like you've been doing some pretty amazing things over there, or you will be, or that's what it's all for. It's so amazing. It's so amazing. And then we do have the Gemini card sitting right outside. And the Lovers can also be about choices, right? And so maybe you'll have to make some hard choices. And that's another thing about Capricorn energy or the 10th house is that that's something that we have to do at the 10th house. Sometimes we have to make those hard choices. Sometimes we have to sacrifice a little bit to really build and establish a legacy. But continue to do it from that place of self-worth and knowing who you are. Anything that does not fit your new narrative, feel free to edit it out. Because that's the thing about the book, right? It's not complete yet. Our lives aren't complete until they're over. And so we can always change them and make them better. And again, it doesn't necessarily feel like making it better per se. It just feels like continuing to care for yourself and nurturing yourself in everything that you put your time into. I guess that can also be the energy of like, not wasting effort. I don't know, Casey. Exactly. And I love how it comes together like that. And that's the balance, that's the egg energy. The blistering heat is the feminine, that's the passion and the desire. The freezing cold is the masculine, it's the logical and it's the logic and the plan. So it's like you have the plans, you have the desire to carry it through. I mean, it feels pretty solid. And it was the 10 of Pentacles, the 10 of Diamonds, which was the book. I mean, that's like that you could turn your story into a fairy tale. I mean, Thank you, Casey. I mean, you're obviously the amazing one because that is huge. I'm like, oh my gosh. And Temperance did come out, right? And so this is about balancing, again, that blistering heat and that freezing cold. Because if it gets too hot, you'll cook it. If it gets too cold, it'll freeze. So let's do a final message. And then I will move on to finishing the things that I need to finish. This September and October are going to be so... It's like... It's going to be a lot. I'm being called to step up in nearly every aspect, and I am so ready. And I'm so ready for the payout, too. I'm just like, it's time. It's time. And it's been time. It hasn't been time, but it is time now. Let's see if one of those ended up flipping over for us to read. Let's see. What? I thought it flipped over. Ooh. Let's see. There we go. That's my desperation move. Bottom of the deck is the 5 of Clubs. The day of longest light or night. A garment for all occasions and filling a gap. 5 of Clubs is the 5 of Souls. And the 5 is sort of that turning point in an understanding. 5 is a number of change, and it speaks to authenticity. But the 5 is at the cusp. The 5 hasn't yet made a decision, so it is kind of sort of a crossroadsy type energy where we can, depending on the state that we're in, where we can be easily tipped either direction, right? And it's really, and then here's the 5 of Diamonds with the 7 of Spades. Nearly perfect harmony with the 5 of Diamonds. Nearly perfect harmony, a crystal clear night of charted stars, and triplets in the 3rd trimester. 7 of Spades is taking the plunge into an ice cold tank, dissolution of the self, integration, and separation. And so this is about, it's almost calling back that energy from earlier. That was about trying to get out a stubborn stain. Because it's like we keep hitting this nearly perfect harmony, but there's something preventing us from going all the way there. And the Five of Diamonds being the Five of Realms, it introduces that same sort of like tip of the iceberg, tipping point energy where whatever you put the most energy into right now is going to, that's like going to be how you move forward. And with the Seven of Spades, with the seven being greater than five, it's like there is more actually pushing you towards change and evolution and growth. But you also have to be ready for it, right? It's like let go of all hesitation. Fairy tale, love it. I know there's a whole bunch going on, Casey, but it's like that's the potential that we have right now. September is feeling amazing. And when I first tapped into it, I was like, oh, September feels like whatever you've been doing, whatever the direction you've been heading in, it's like it's getting closer. Especially when we come into Libra season. For some reason, Libra season really felt like the beginning of the turning of that Wheel of Fortune. But I know in my own personal life, it's not for me to be complacent. It's for me to actually start acting on everything. It's about expanding the foundation that I've built. In action. It's about action. For me, at least in particular. And also about softening up a little bit. Right? But yeah, that's what this is. And like the crystal clear night of charted stars, it's almost this energy of like we can see the constellation, but we don't get the overall picture. We see all the stars, we see how they connect, but we don't see the image that's overlaid. We don't see how it all plays together. And that's what this integration and separation and dissolution is all about. It's almost like it's giving me biochemistry, chemistry. It's one of those models of molecular and reaction kinetics. It's the one where it's that energy perfectly, and I know exactly what it is, but I can't remember. There are these different energetic states, and molecularly, entropy is the natural chaos in the universe. And things typically tend to more entropy. Things get more chaotic on the overall. But on an individual basis, we settle where things are the most stable. And there are these relative minima and then these global minima, right? And the minima is like if you have these peaks and valleys, the absolute lowest valley is the global or absolute minimum. These smaller valleys are relative. And this is about not settling in a relative minimum. It's about finding a greater or a global minimum. And that's this kind of sort of back and forth energy. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're the most stable. And when molecules do that, it's like they have all of these molecules and protein conformation, when like proteins are folding and stuff like that. Anything that the body assembles, it's like there are all these different conformations, all of these different ways that the molecules can align and the different bonds that they form. And it's like it keeps doing this until it finds the one that's the most stable, and then it locks there. And it feels like that's the energy over here. But again, decision is not action. Deciding is not an action. So once you find that place of stability, it's like we do something from there. If that made any sense. Oh, we might have to set something up one of these days, Casey. But honestly, right now, it's like I really have to get to business and focus on like what I'm doing. And I allow these moments to come on and talk, but because I gotta finish 2 semesters of senior design, and now I have 2.5 months where I literally had a whole year. I keep losing track of time. Like the days are flying by, and I really need to buckle down and start doing that. But I would love to. Okay, so final message from these cards, please, to show us what's just spiritually out there. Like a few cards. Let's see if I can do it here. I don't know if I'll be able to. No. When some people I've been trying to look at how other people shuffle, so I can get some jumpers, but I don't want them to fly all over the place. It's fine. We'll do this until it feels right. Oh, that's way too much. Come on, come on. Oh, okay. It's 4 cards, and I'm actually going to end it with this, so we'll see. First cards first. Oh, they're all in reverse. I have the deck upside down. These are upright only. So first card is the 6 of Wands, which is all about victory. And it's all about recognition. Now, we do have this sort of pyramidal. Is that trigonal pyramidal? Trigonal pyramidal structure. Almost. Although it kind of sort of wouldn't be, because there are these 2 wands on the middle. There's a coin with the leaves in it, which symbolize growth. There's a laurel here. And okay, I was trying to see if it looked like the laurel was in danger of catching on fire with all of these wands, but it doesn't look like it. This is about having a healthy foundation, and also this foundation is 3-dimensional. So it's not flat, right? And the fact that it isn't flat means that it is capable of withstanding. It stands. There's stability on many facets, right? It's like emotional stability, mental stability, physical stability, or stability within the self, right? There's the overall emotional, the overall mental, and then the overall you within you type of stability. And when you have that much stability, it's like there's not a lot that can defeat you. And then is the star card. So it's all, oh, this is so wands heavy. This is so wands heavy. Trying to pick something out. Casey! Oh my gosh. You don't have to, but I would appreciate that so much. Oh my goodness, Casey. Don't make me cry. That's going to be the light that we shine right now. And I feel like our stories are so important right now because, and look, it's coming from the stars in the hands that's watering the plants. It's like one of the ways that we can contribute and one of the ways that we can give back. And our stories right now really have the power to inspire, because there are a lot of people who are going through a lot of stuff. And I was watching something lately, and someone just they kept saying, I wish that the people who went through this talked about it, because when I finally decided to do it and when I started acting on it, that's when I found out that literally so many other people that I know are also going through the same thing. Right? And that's why we go through some of the things that we go through, to have that testimony, to shine that light, to make it a little bit easier for those who come behind us, and to let people know that they're not alone. Right? And then we have the 2 of Wands here followed by the Conqueror of Cups. The Conqueror of Cups is the Knight of Cups. This is about leading from the heart. With the Two of Wands and the Conqueror of Cups. And so this is 8 Wands overall with the Star and the Knight of Cups energy. Honestly, it's kind of sort of feeling like the universe, Spirit, is the Knight of Cups, wanting to bring you everything that you've been wishing for and working for. I mean, that's the reason why we go through so many things in life. It's not to be defeated by it. It's to triumph over it and then to move forward with that foundation. And maybe that's another thing that, like the Star into this Two of Wands, it's about, well, there you go. The Star into the Two of Wands, it's about moving forward in that authenticity. Oof. More hands on the cards. Exactly. We'll have to set something up one of these days, Casey. Just give me a little bit of time to like actually get into a routine. Because if I don't, it'll make it more difficult for me. I honestly kind of sort of don't want to come live as much. Not because I don't want to, but because I really, really, really need to focus on what it is that I need to do right now. But give me a little bit of time to fall into my new routine, and then I got you. And then that's the Conqueror of Cups. Look. Yeah, this is that. It's coming in love. It's coming in so many areas. Because we have the wreath here in the Six of Wands. If you can see it, yeah, you see the wreath. And then in the Conqueror of Cups, we have that same wreath, but it has the roses growing in it now. And the roses symbolize love. It's like lovingly Spirit. But we have to move forward also. And that's what the Two of Wands is also about. And this is what I've been saying, like, us being grounded should be us having the capability to operate and to navigate the world with an authenticity and to be relatively unaffected. Relatively, right? I feel like a lot of times when we approach grounding, it's like isolate yourself, cut yourself off from everything, and then find peace. And it's like, okay, that's fair and that's fine, but at some point you should be able to take yourself out into the real world, because we don't live in bubbles. And if you're only grounded to the extent of like you're isolated from everything else, then how grounded are you really? It's about becoming a mobile fortress, right? So that's what I got. It was so fun. Casey. Send me an email, Casey. Shoot me an email and then we'll get in contact. I'm not going to. That's another lesson that I started learning like last year, honestly. And it's another thing that was brought up Friday. Me beginning to utilize and to tap into those things that are there to assist me. So shoot me an email, Casey. You don't have my email, so I'll put it here. My email is, you can send it. Oh, what is it? Hold up. I got like 15 emails. Oh, yeah. Send it to this one. That is mine email. Thank you again so much. It was such a blast. It was so much fun. I've enjoyed it immensely. Ooh. But yeah, you got it. All right. Thanks again, Casey. I know I've said it like a few times, but I've honestly enjoyed it a lot. So expansive, so just like fun and educational, like you said. It was amazing. How long has it been? It doesn't matter. All right. To everyone else, have a good whatever, whenever, and you too, Casey. Have a good whatever, whenever you see this, and I hope you're acting in alignment to make that good even better. And I'll catch y'all when I catch y'all. Later.